It's Wake Up Wyoming with Glenn Woods.
Six is the time. It's Wake Up Wyoming. My name is Glenn Woods. Thanks for joining me. It's a Tuesday. You might be hearing about some weather moving into our area. That's part of the day weather forecast from Dawn Day. And that will get you up to speed on. That starts to happen tomorrow as the system gets a little more organized. In the meantime,
the show was sponsored by Flashlight Sunglasses. Looking cool in the dark has never been easier.
Yeah. Well, hey, if you want to waste your money on it,
Warning, this show contains reference to guns, liberty, limited government, low taxation, the cult of climate change, free thinking, cigar smoking, short people, rubber chickens, Karen's bureaucracy, liberal buzzwords, tour runs, traffic, toilets, terrible jokes, and more. No apologies will be issued. Guest callers may express any opinion they want without fear of being canceled. Unless you're a loudmouth jerk like Dave, then Glenn will hang up on you. Strap in, hold on to your coffee, and feel free to participate.
This disclaimer does not refer to every person named Dave, just one particular Dave from San Francisco. We know a lot of Daves. They call this show all the time, and they're great people. So don't call this program and complain that we use your name. That would be a real Dave move, Dave. This is a strange note to get first thing in the morning. Hello, Junkman. He's in Alliance, Nebraska. There is a plumber, he writes, in Asheville, North Carolina. I know the place well. That posts some crazy videos I think you would like. All short but funny and informative. I'll have a look. Oh, and he's got a picture for me. I'll take a look at that in just a minute from now. Okay, some of the stories I got to get out of the way. Let me see. First off, we'll head out of Wyoming, but it makes a really good point. I've been thinking about this quite a bit this morning as I've read all sorts of different stories involving not just local government, but national and international. You've heard me say before, these people have no idea what they're doing. People in government are often never the people you'd want to elect for anything because they don't know what they're doing. They think that they're experts in all sorts of things, but they're not. And they make the dumbest possible decisions. That is the case, not always, but much of the time, that's the case. When I meet politicians, in most cases, not all, but in most cases, I meet people who have no idea what they're talking about, although they think they want to solve a problem. They'll even try to we'll take a look at the shape that government is as far as debt is concerned. Wyoming has a nice big surplus. Thankfully, they've managed their money properly. The state has anyway. But most city, county, state, federal government even in massive financial trouble. And who's responsible for that? Yeah, the people that we elected. The more they try to fix, the more broke it gets, including our electric grid, things like that. Well, these are the people who've even tried to convince you, and have convinced many people, actually, that they can control the weather. They'll fix the weather. Just give them enough power and over you, and they want your money, too. And by the time they get done, they'll make sure that you never have to experience bad weather ever again. This is who these people are. They're often narcissists, too. You are beneath them. Here's a headline. Meet the Democrat supermayor who critics say deserves a TV show for her antics. She's self-described. She calls herself the supermayor of a small Illinois town, making waves for her wild antics and alleged obscene spending of taxpayer dollars, with some insisting her escapades warrant a real-life Parks and Recreation TV show. Tiffany Henyard, a Democrat who serves as mayor on the Chicago suburb of Dalton, has drawn massive heat for blowing taxpayer cash and everything from first-class flights to Vegas to over-the-top security, personalized billboards of her that the taxpayers have to pay for. She's also in the Thornton Township as a supervisor. She's been blasted for bringing DJs to town for meetings, shooting music videos with cops and using professional hairstylists to get glam for community events. And those hairstylists were paid for by the taxpayers, by the way. So when she goes gets her hair done, that's the taxpayers that pay for that. Meanwhile, the mayor's Instagram and TikTok pages are filled with influencer-style videos, all sorts of wonderful outfits and so on. She often loves to boast, "God chose me." In her Instagram bio, she describes herself as the most powerful woman of the Southland of Chicago. Wow. Okay, well, now I'm looking at pictures over here, too. Boy, she likes some expensive clothes. Her brazen soap opera-level antics have garnered widespread attention on social media in recent weeks, with many claiming her behavior is mostly too funny to be believed. There's a real-life parks and recreation situation going on here, some people have said. Well, my thought is, after I look at pictures of her and how much money she's spending on all these obscene things, so get rid of her. According to copies of the township credit card statements, taxpayers forked over some $3,741 for a round-trip flight to Vegas. That trip included $8,400 on hotels, $587 on a steakhouse, nearly $400 on a hot and juicy crawfish. What? I guess that's a dish you eat? And when she was asked about the trip by local reporters, she responded, she just sort of blankly turned to him and said, "Any other questions?" There's multiple billboards throughout the area of Raleigh. 20,000 people live there. They have a small salary average of about $24,000 a person. In other words, it's not a rich neighborhood. But boy, is she living off the taxpayer, despite heavy self-promotion. The billboard advertised for fresh produce, senior services, and general assistance. It wasn't immediately clear if she was elected in 2021, who pays out of pocket for her makeup and hairstylist, until they began to find out that it's the taxpayers that do that. All right, these are the people who we've elected. I know we're not in Illinois, but you get the idea. These are the kinds of people that we elect. Now, real quick, let's get back to the state of Wyoming again. This one is a little bit more for the imagination. We're going to go to Rock Springs. Now, immediately when I say Rock Springs, there are people who say, hey, you know, okay, there's a lot of drugs in Rock Springs, right? So when you see a headline that says, attorney for Rock Springs captures video of UFO near Green River, Richard Beckworth has been fascinated all his life by UFOs and the potentiality for life elsewhere, the story says. This is Cowboy State Daily. So much of his investigation, hundreds of UFO sightings have been reported around Wyoming. Late Saturday night into early morning Sunday, Rock Spring attorney was rewarded by not just seeing a UFO, but he says he captured it on more than 40 minutes of video. Interesting. So now I'm looking at the story from Cowboy State Daily. Let's see what I got here. Okay, as usual, this is typical. It is a video of a light, a blurry light in the night sky. Well, there you go. For once, just once in my life, I would like to have somebody post a UFO video where I can actually see a real UFO and it's not like CGI or something like that. I mean, obviously, and don't just have some blurry light up there and then tell me that that's supposed to be proof of aliens from outer space visiting Wyoming.
911, what's your emergency?
I'm looking at a UFO in the woods.
All right. Where are you?
I'm behind the lumber yard on 26. There's this huge orb of purple light.
Okay, stay where you are. We're going to send someone to check it out.
What if I am to be our planet's ambassador?
Just stay put.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking too. Okay, I'm gonna put you on speaker.
What are you doing?
Strip it down.
No, sir. Please put your clothes back on and wait for the patrol car.
This is my moment. I'm getting in that thing. You just keep recording this for science.
Sure.
Welcome, overlords! I am Steven! Oh, no.
What's the matter?
I've intruded on a fancy party.
Mm-hmm. And what about...
Next time on Wyoming Hookin' and Huntin' Outdoors with host Drew Kirby.
Another great show presented by Rocky Mountain Discount Sports and Brooks Companies. Of course, as always, we talk with Janet and the Wyoming Game and Fish Department crew. You never know what we'll chat about. Brian from Rocky Mountain Discount Sports and I will chat about the latest and greatest going on, and you never really know who else is going to stop by. Be sure to tune in.
Sundays at 11 a.m. or 24/7 on demand on the K2 Radio app. Wake Up Wyoming Woods, on air, online, and on the Wake Up Wyoming mobile app. Be part of the show at 888-97-WOODS. This is K2 Radio.
$6:19 to the time. It's Wake Up Wyoming. Okay, so if you're listening to this, it looks like some things are out of sync on the computer. We do have some people working on this right now. A couple of technical issues for our stations up around Casper, Wyoming. So if you're in the, let's say around listening to KGAB in that market area, or maybe the Laramie station, it should be working fine for you. All right, this one's going to kind of blow you away. Let's go over to Washington, D.C. Remember Fetterman? Yes, Senator Fetterman. This is the guy who was showing up wearing hoodies every single day and shorts. And I think he had like black socks on with his sneakers. And they finally got him to start wearing suits like everybody else is supposed to. No excuses. All right, well, apparently our own Senator Lummis is teaming up with him. Now, don't get mad at Lummis. When you're in politics, you have to work with people. You just have to. So here's the story. Again, Cowboys Day Daily. Still a little bipartisanship here and there, the story says. Capitol Hill. U.S. Senator Cynthia Lummis is part of a co-sponsored legislation with U.S. Senator Fetterman, Democrat of Pennsylvania, that would establish a 5-year pilot program to make it easier for homeowners to get help with some critical home repairs. So, the Whole Home Repairs Act would allow moderate-income homeowners and small landlords to apply for federal grants and loans to make needed repairs on your properties. Now, before I get further into this, being more of the libertarian guy, once again, I look at this as not the proper role of government. But I'll read on. Before I get into why I don't like the idea, I'll read on. So, again, the Whole Home Repairs Act would allow low and moderate income homeowners and small landlords to apply for federal grants and loans to make needed repairs on their property. So as a ranking member of the subcommittee in Housing, Transportation, and Community Development, Lummis frequently deals with issues involving nationwide housing crisis. And that also significantly impacts Wyoming, not just the rest of the country. She said many low-income families in Wyoming struggle when applying for existing federal home repair grants because of months-long backlog. And, of course, you know where this is going, red tape. The legislation is purely, she says, a way to cut red tape and make it easier for low-income families throughout Wyoming to access federal repair grants. So, it says, the program would be a national version of a similar program started in Pennsylvania in 2022, which, according to the Fetterman press release, homeowners from 95% of the state's communities participate in. So Pennsylvania, wow, 95% of the state's communities in Pennsylvania participate in this. That doesn't mean 95% of the people, but the communities do. Pennsylvania, he says, whole program, Holmes program, was an incredible success, Fetterman said. Pardon me if I don't believe him. The bill will make it so that more working families can afford repairs for their homes and ensure money goes out through existing programs further. What do you want to bet? I got to see the way the program works. What do you want to bet? A lot of money is going to be wasted and very few repairs will ever be done. One of the reasons I don't like the idea. I understand. I've seen it. You've seen it too. You drive by some place that you think ought to be condemned, and you're convinced that nobody should be or can possibly be living there, and yet people are living there. And they own the home, and there's nothing they can do to repair it. They got a big hole in their roof, whatever the case is. And they can't. And we don't want anyone living like that, right? However, when you have a federal program that gives out grants, which the federal government doesn't have anyway, federal government doesn't have this money. We're already borrowing massive amounts from future generations. We can barely keep up with our interest payments as is. In fact, I'm going to say we can't keep up with our interest payments because your federal government borrows money. Your federal government borrows money to pay the interest on the national debt, but we're doing this anyway. Okay, I'm thinking like everything else the federal government does, a lot of money is going to go out for home repairs and very few homes will be repaired. All right, by reading on, both senators say years of deferred maintenance, largely due to high and rising repair utility costs, have led many homeowners and renters to forced to live in unsafe condition in urban communities. They said existing programs are overly bureaucratic. Well, of course they are. They're government programs. So, of course, they're overly bureaucratic. Quote, it's important for low-income families throughout the Cowboy State to live in homes that are livable, Lummis told Cowboy State Daily. This is a very serious issue for many Wyoming, specifically our tribal communities, where 5% of tribal housing is unsafe and not habitable. Well, hang on a minute now. This goes back to my original point. We have been giving money to these tribes for quite some time. Even got in some places around the country and just flat out built homes for them. And yet, quickly, the places are unlivable. They already get money for this, and yet the places are unlivable. Again, my answer is, so we're going to send all of this money to these folks, and most of it's going to get wasted. And very few repairs will ever happen. Lummis said to get legislation across the finish line in the Senate, where Democrats hold a majority, bipartisanship is required. So, quote, 4 bills to advance in the Senate are needed for 60 votes. So it's imperative to work. Of court cases of fraud and abuse, both from within government and people taking advantage of government. Much of that money just disappeared. We have no idea where it went, who enriched themselves with this, still trying to figure it out. Now, the same thing happens with going beyond COVID, military contracts. Well, and name it. Follow government money and find out who's enriching themselves off of this government money. So if the idea is we're going to go help people who are living in conditions they shouldn't be living in, and again, I sympathize and I'd like to help them. The last thing, being more of the libertarian guy in the room, if you will, the last thing I want to do is start another government program with money that we don't have It's already heavily bureaucratic as it is. And as this money goes out to help these folks, most of this money will never get to where it's needed to actually help these people. Go ahead, spend billions of dollars on this and come back in a few years, and we'll find out, after billions of dollars being spent, we'll find out that these people are still living in the same exact conditions. All right. Coming up on some local business that we have to take care of, and we're going to roll into news time after that. National, local update on your weather forecast. It's Wake Up Wyoming.
cold.
Wake up, Wyoming. Glenn Woods is live on AM 1030 K2 Radio and the Wake Up Wyoming mobile app.
.36 the time. It's Wake Up Wyoming. My name is Glenn Woods. Thanks for joining me. Okay, so I missed it. If it comes back, I'm going to get a picture of it and post it for everybody. On the ridiculously large television they have in the studio next to me, you know, I just watched this channel that just does raw news. They just put cameras wherever, and this is happening, and our cameras are there, and that's it. And there's rarely a reporter, almost never any commentating. It just, here's where we are. So they had a live shot, a bunch of microphones in front of the nation's capital. So they're getting ready for a press conference. And the sign in front of the microphones said, Democrats in support of border security. Democrats who support border security. Okay. But nobody was there. So I went reaching for my phone to get a picture of that. I know the Democrats just hadn't shown up yet. I get that. But there was just nobody there. Oh, it's hysterical. I want that picture. I want to make a meme out of that. All right. Another one, let me see, was, who was it? Someone had sent me a note here since I was talking about wasted money. Oh, AC, who is in Hillsborough. I recall Michelle and Barry ordering lobster at some big hotel in New York City while campaigning in 2008. They denied it, but apparently it's true. Well, so they didn't pay for it themselves. That was all on the political dime, is that? Some years ago, and I bet they still do it, there was a big scandal, huge scandal. Bureaucrats from D.C. would go have conventions. And when they would go to a convention, it was, of course, like they would go to Vegas for a convention. And they would put themselves up in the swankiest hotels and order all sorts of expensive food and so on. We're talking all top of the line. They would really treat themselves. And it's all on the taxpayer dollar. And they would think nothing of it. Like, this is okay to do this. And quite a few of them were really shocked when they were called out on this. Now, my thought at the time was, can you imagine being a bureaucrat and you want to go to a convention for bureaucrats and then you have to sign up for it? And, of course, that would mean you're going to have to fill out all the paperwork because it would sound like this.
The following is a paid advertisement for the hardworking-ish bureaucrats of America.
Are you a bureaucrat? We would like to invite you to register for the Hometown International Bureaucratic Information and Justification Institute for the Bureau of Internal Symposium, or HEBJEEBs for short. HEBJEEBs invites you to this one or 3-day symposium, depending if our 3-day internal certification is renewed, we will have an exciting lineup planned. Health and Human Services Director Kathleen Sebelius, former IRS Manager Lois Lerner, and former head of the EPA Lisa Jackson. Registration is easy-ish. Just go to Hometown International Bureaucratic Information and Justification Institute for the Bureau of Internal Symposiums .com and click register now. No, not now, but when you get there, click the word now, but not yet. You'll be directed to a site requesting you to fill out a small 12-page application.
This application gives you the heebie-jeebies information and authorizes you to print off a short 37-page registration form. After the registration form is complete, please go back to the heebie-jeebies website and follow the same steps 2 more times. Since registration in triplicate is required and copies will not be accepted, please fill out 1 with a number 2 pen, 2 with a ballpoint pen, and 3 with a crayon. Snail mail your application and registration along with your non-refundable check and money order, each made out for $250 to heebie-jeebies. Credit cards are accepted, but please allow for additional 10 to 12 weeks for processing.
You will then be promptly notified within 8 to 10 months if your non-refundable registration has been accepted. Don't delay. Get the heebie-jeebies today.
That idea was created by the Dan, who is in Sioux Falls, South Dakota, and he gave me the ideas for heebie-jeebies and came up with heebie-jeebies being an acronym, which is just absolutely brilliant. And so he came up with that idea and a basic script for it. And so asked me for help. So we did not just the script together, recorded it so he could narrate it as you're hearing, but then we also put a video together. And the fun part is I had to shoot the video in reverse order because as he's filling out all of the paperwork to go to the convention, he just gets more and more disheveled. So eventually he's sitting there in a wife-beater shirt with a 3-day beard and his hair is a mess and, So what we did was we started with him looking like that, and then as we shot the video, we cleaned him up, putting a nicer shirt, shaving him, combing his hair, et cetera, straightening up the desk, and then ran it backwards when we did the video. So as he fills out the paperwork, he just gets in worse and worse shape. But that was his idea for, hey, what if bureaucrats wanted to go to a convention, how much paperwork would there be for that? And
next time on Wyoming Hookin' and Huntin' Outdoors with host Drew Kirby.
Another great show presented by Rocky Mountain Discount Sports and Brooks Companies. Of course, as always, we talk with Janet and the Wyoming Game and Fish Department crew. You never know what we'll chat about. Brian from Rocky Mountain Discount Sports and I will chat about the latest and greatest going on, and you never really know who else is going to stop by. Be sure to tune in.
Sundays at 11 a.m. or 24/7 on demand on the K2 Radio app.
Your daughter doesn't want to talk about why her room is a horrible mess. Your son doesn't want to talk about why he's wearing mismatching socks. Your spouse doesn't want to talk about their bad haircut. Families don't have to talk about everything, but they should talk to plan for an emergency. Pack basic supplies in a go bag, water, canned food, flashlights, batteries, medical supplies, IDs, and some cash. Talk about where you'll meet in case you lose one another. And of course, don't forget to pack the dog treats. Talk to your family and make an emergency plan. Go to nyc.gov/readyny or call 311 to make your family's emergency plan. Brought to you by New York City Emergency Management and the Ad Council.
There's danger out there. It lurks on highways and quiet neighborhood streets. It's more likely to kill you than a shark and more terrifying than the biggest snake. Distracted driving claims lives every day. Every notification, swipe, social post, video, or selfie while driving risks your life. So while you might think public speaking or the zombie apocalypse is scary, what's really terrifying and even deadly is distracted driving. Eyes forward. Don't drive distracted. Brought to you by NHTSA and the Ad Council.
Wake Up Wyoming goes anywhere you do with the Wake Up Wyoming app. Free download for Apple and Android. This is K2 Radio.
6:45 is time. It's Wake Up Wyoming. Frank Gambino sitting in the studio with me. So you believe in UFOs, Frank?
No.
Okay.
Until I see one land on live TV.
Yes.
And all the networks are saying, okay, somebody's visiting us.
Yes. And then they come out with some kind of, please, at this point in our history, don't say, take me to your leader. I don't want any of these people. Please.
We want to go to your leader.
Yeah, we'd much rather see that.
Yeah.
Well, the reason I bring this up is we have another reporting in Wyoming. The city attorney for Rock Springs. Now, maybe I'm being rude, Frank, but the moment I see Rock Springs and UFO, I'm suspicious.
Yeah, I think they're sniffing too much Tron or something.
Probably, yeah. Well, that's being polite about it. Yeah. Yes, okay. So anyway, he is a big UFO enthusiast. So, of course, he's out there all the time looking for this thing. And he goes ahead and takes a picture, a video of this. Now, the front of the video, well, okay, there's two patches of blurry lights.
Of course, they're all blurry.
That's right. The front one looks more like a utility vehicle yellow light just kind of blinking back and forth, but it's hard to tell because it's all blurry.
Yeah.
Then there's another light further in the background, which could be the moon. I can't tell, Frank, because it
could be any star.
It's blurry. Yeah. And according to the blurry pictures there, and he actually recorded this thing for a total of 45 minutes. Of just blurry lights. And this is supposed to be proof that there's aliens among us somewhere.
Okay, they didn't stop and say hello or,
no, they didn't stop. Nobody was taken up. No. There's no chip in someone's behind. Nothing like that.
And none of our high-tech satellites detected this thing.
Not a thing. No. Of course not. No. Okay. Happened at night, too.
Oh, of course.
It
never happens in the day.
Yeah. And, of course, it has to be in some rural. It's not just bad enough that it's Green River. It's outside of Green River.
By the spaceport.
That's a good point, Frank. By the spaceport somewhere.
So the guy couldn't find the airport.
No, apparently. So what we have is I got to put this story together then, Frank. I hadn't thought about that. There is a spaceport out there. So apparently this was an attempted landing.
Right, he just didn't get clearance or anything.
That will be tomorrow's story that I'll go ahead and write up, that there's an attempted landing somewhere at the spaceport. Okay, see, this is why we have Frank Gambino and bring him into the studio and try to sort all of this stuff out. Okay. Off we go.
All righty, in women's college basketball, the Wyoming Cowgirls went 1-0 in the Mountain West Tournament in Las Vegas. They lost to Boise State last night, 62-54. Cowgirls played a brutal fourth quarter. They were just 3 of 17 from the field and outscored 22-10 in the final stanza. For the game, UW 4 of 17 from the three-point line. They turned the ball over 15 times, and turnovers have been an issue all year long. Allison Furtick led the Cowgirls with 16 points, Melina Peterson with 13, but Tess Barnes was 3 of 12 from the field. Wyoming lost 6 of their last 8 games. They're 16-14, and while the NCAA tournament is out of the picture, they may or may not get into one of 2 postseason tournaments. We'll see. Wyoming Cowboys will play Fresno State in the Mountain West tournament tomorrow at noon. The Pokes beat Fresno State over the weekend, so this is a game between the 8th and the 9th seeds. UW 15-16 overall, Fresno 11-20. High school football, the Shrine Bowl rosters have been announced for the All-Star game that will be June the 8th in Casper. For the North team, 4 players from the Toronto were selected: Bo Russell, Joseph Sanchez, Noah Sides, and Tim Edmondson. Kelly Walsh had 2 players on the North roster, Caleb Ortberg and Boyce Caden. The South team with 5 players from Cheyenne East: Drew Jackson, Cam Hayes, Colby Dirks, Colby Olson, and Nathan Mirich. Cheyenne Central with a trio of players in the Shrine Bowl: Mason Counter, Miles Porwall, and Tyler Gare. In the National Football League, former Denver Bronco quarterback Russell Wilson has apparently found the landing spot. ESPN's reporting that he's going to sign a 1-year deal with the Pittsburgh Steelers. Now, Wilson will get $1.2 million from the Steelers in 2024, and the Broncos are on the hook for the rest of his salary. That's $37.8 million, and he's not even going to play with them. Denver will officially release him tomorrow, and the Broncos will take a big dead money hit on their salary cap, which will be $85 million over 2 years. Wilson's 2-year tenure from the Broncos after leaving Seattle wasn't exactly a match made in heaven. 11 wins and no playoff appearances, and that's it in sports.
So, hang on. So as he leaves, he walks away with how much?
The Broncos will pay him $37.8 million.
Okay. And this is a hit on the other players?
No, the salary cap is so hard to define.
Yeah.
You have a certain amount of money to spend in a given year, and if you're over, you're kind of taxed with that, so you have to be under the amount.
Right.
So they're still paying this guy, and it still counts for their salary, their amount.
Okay.
And he's playing with another team.
Right. See, I've asked this before. Where do we find agents like this?
Oh, I know. These guys are making it. It's incredible.
Okay. Because the way you had said that, I thought for a moment that it might affect the salaries of the other players, but no, they still get their.
Since the Broncos have to commit $37 million to this guy who doesn't play with them, they can't spend money on other guys that they could possibly sign for big money. They're going to be hampered financially for this a little bit.
So they want to get some good quarterback in there. They want to get some good players in there, but they probably now won't be able to afford to do it.
Right. For now.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. So what was this deal that they had you were telling me about? If they suck for a while, they have a better opportunity of getting some good players.
Right. Yes. You'll have a higher draft pick.
Yes.
And yes, you can tank.
Yes.
And get a higher draft pick. And then try to spend some money in a year or two.
Okay. I can ask this question because I don't play in your field. Who are the morons over there that are negotiating these contracts?
Tell me about it.
Yeah, okay.
They're all looking at each other go, really?
Really? Well, I would say instead of, and then I'll let you go with this, but I'm just thinking, rather than not trying to, work with these negotiators and trying to hire, these different players, why not just fire the people who keep making these bad deals?
Exactly. George Payton is the general manager of the Broncos. Why does he still have a job? When the Walton family, who runs Walmart, bought the team for billions, they can't just be looking to themselves and go, we are just throwing millions of dollars out the door. We can't do that.
You can't do that. It's a business. Unless they're using the Broncos as a tax write-off.
Possibly.
Yes.
And they're doing just fine in that regard. They're going to get a nice big deal out of that.
In that case, their accountant is like spot on. All right. Thank you, Frank. Appreciate that. Folks, we're coming up on some local business that we have to take care of. We're going to roll into news time after that. And then it'll be, we have a guest in the 8 o'clock hour. Other than that, it's you and me. And maybe we can get a little bit more into not just people on teams like Frank was talking about, but other people who obviously need to be fired because they don't know how to negotiate a decent contract. Now, I don't talk sports. I usually talk government, right? So since I talk government things, I wonder about people in government who not just waste money, but just negotiate really bad contracts and the idea of firing them. Because if you're running a business, a real business, if you're someone who is a businessman in charge of a company, you know that you have to make good deals, negotiate good contracts, and get results. And if you don't, then one of your options is to get rid of the people who make the bad deals. Makes sense, right? So maybe we should start doing this from the government perspective as well. Just like the Broncos need to get rid of whoever it is that makes these horrible deals at the same time, let's get rid of people in government who don't know how to make good deals either. They just, as I said earlier today, they absolutely suck at it, but we keep hiring them for these positions. All right, coming up on local news, update on your weather forecast. You and I get rolling back into it again. It's Wake Up Wyoming. 7:06 of time. It's Wake Up Wyoming. My name is Glenn Woods. Thanks for joining me. It's a Tuesday. If you're listening to your local weather forecast on your local station, you might have heard about some weather coming our way. Not today. We get into tomorrow. How all that weather comes together is still up in the air according to Don Day's forecast. And I was listening to his podcast earlier this morning, which he puts up before I even get on the air. So I got a preview of it. So 7:45, Don Day and I will be on live to discuss the weather coming our way for Wednesday into Thursday. And again, it just depends on where you are as to what you're going to get. We are going to get some wet. That's for certain. How much is going to depend on how it comes together and where you are. Stay tuned.
Today's show was sponsored by Flashlight Sunglasses. Looking cool in the dark has never been easier.
So we do have a guest coming up in the 8 o'clock hour. Up until then, it's you and me. 888-97 Woods, the phone number. Trigger warning.
Warning. This show contains reference to guns, liberty, limited government, low taxation, the cult of climate change, free thinking, cigar smoking, short people, rubber chickens, Karen's bureaucracy, liberal buzzwords, tour runs, traffic, toilets, terrible jokes, and more. No apologies will be issued. Guest callers may express any opinion they want without fear of being canceled. Unless you're a loudmouth jerk like Dave, then Glenn will hang up on you. Strap in, hold on to your coffee, and feel free to participate.
This disclaimer does not refer to every person named Dave, just one particular Dave from San Francisco. We know a lot of Daves. They call this show all the time, and they're great people. So don't call this program and complain that we use your name. That would be a real Dave move, Dave.
There's a coming power shortage to America. It's already beginning to happen. An example of that is when we talked about California in the past. California, of course, the big push to wind and solar, and by doing so, they're picking unreliable energy as they shut down coal, natural gas, and trying to shut down some of their nuclear plants. We all know that story. Same thing's happening in Europe. Prices are going up, and they have less reliable energy because they're using wind and solar. And as you know, that energy is not clean or green or anything like that. So I heard something that made me put together a story that's on the Wake Up Wyoming site, and I used, let me see, I think it was the Washington Post. Yeah, Washington Post is some of my references on this. So the nation itself is starting to run low on power. It's not just that we've been shutting down coal and natural gas, and even because of environmentalists, hydroelectric plants are being torn down. Because, you know, this is bad for the fish, right? Can't have hydroelectric plants with, I mean, how are fish supposed to swim upstream? And it turns out in California, they tore down one hydroelectric plant and killed the very fish they were trying to save. Plus all sorts of other wildlife, too. It's just made a mess of things. So what are we supposed to do for energy? Because, again, wind and solar have been proven not only not to be clean or green or reliable or affordable, but very expensive. Very expensive. And intermittent at best. All right. At the same time, we're using more power than ever before. And it's not just a matter of our growing population, which is certainly the thing. Now, I mean, we certainly have enough babies in America, but there's also all of the people pouring across our north and south border, especially the southern border, millions of people. We're using more electricity than ever before. And we're building a lot of technology centers because now that so many things are going online, the internet has taken over so much of our lives. We have data service centers for all sorts of things. And these things are energy hogs, which is why a couple have been built in Wyoming and some more are coming to Wyoming and some other places around the country that are in more northern latitudes because it takes less electricity to keep those suckers cool. They use enough electricity as it is. And we're building more and more of these data centers all over the country. So for a lot of reasons, we're using more energy. And because not just your federal government, certain states want to get rid of the internal combustion engine for your automobile. That would be driving electric cars. We don't have the energy to do that. But they also want us to stop using natural gas at home for heating, for cooking. But you see, using natural gas for heating and cooking takes a lot of the strain off of the electric grid. I mean, the electric grid in America is strained enough as it is. So if we ended up all going to all electric homes, that's even more power. Where are we getting all of this from? To me, it's a lot like taking a look at our national debt. Every time the president just came out with a budget, which is already dead on arrival, but he had a budget idea that was way over $7 trillion, and we don't have that. We don't have all of the money he's been spending while he's been president anyway. Where is he getting all of this? We're going to borrow more and print more? And the same thing comes for our power. When it comes to our electric grid, we're supposed to shut down the most reliable sources of energy that we have go to a much less reliable source of energy, and yet at the same time we're being told we need to do everything all electric. Where is this energy supposed to come from? The math doesn't add up when you run the numbers. And so in the article I put up this morning, one of the things I point out is a state like Wyoming has more than enough energy to provide for the rest of the nation. Not just producing electricity here, but we have natural gas and coal that we can ship, and uranium even, that we can ship to other states so they can produce it on-site in those states. We have everything that we need right here to serve a good part of the country for a very long time. And I've heard people say, well, we're going to run out of coal and natural gas soon, and petroleum is going away. No, we have, just in North America alone, hundreds of years worth of this stuff. Just in North America alone, that we're aware of currently, hundreds of years worth of it. So we have some to last for a good long time. And in the future, maybe we will come across a different kind of energy that we can use where we won't have to use petroleum and natural gas and so on. But right now we do, and we have plenty of it. It's all available to use right here, right now. But instead of doing that, we have not just a president, but even governors, states, are trying to shut all of this down. So think about the math on this. They want us to go to less and less reliable energy, and at the same time, and more expensive as well, and worse for the environment. And at the same time, they want us to use more electricity than ever before, and we are. It's already straining the grid. So here again, what's the answer to this? I don't think, personally, that we solve this problem by continuing to elect the same people that we've been electing. And I don't just mean on a national level, but on a local level too. Plus, a little bit more of an education of the general public about what exactly we're doing with energy here in America, where it comes from. Most people, we're just so used to it now. We walk over to an electric socket, we plug in, and there's the power. It's just there. It's like magic. There it is. With very little thought about what this actually constitutes, where it comes from, how this is produced. People think about food in much the same way. For those of us who for those out there who would like to change our eating habits, they haven't stopped to think about how we produce food, where it actually comes from. So, okay, what exactly is the plan? I would love to ask people like the Biden administration, like the governor of California. But before I ask the question, I have to educate them on where exactly electricity comes from and other sources of power, how exactly their wind and solar really works, because it's always overestimated. They always overestimate when they pull up a solar farm how much power they're going to get out of it. And that's part of the Washington Post story that I was reading. They have those in the energy industry and in government have grossly underestimated how much power we use and are going to be using, and also how much power we are capable of producing.
Time on Wyoming Hookin' and Huntin' Outdoors with host Drew Kirby.
Another great show presented by Rocky Mountain Discount Sports and Brooks Companies. Of course, as always, we talk with Janet and the Wyoming Game and Fish Department crew. You never know what we'll chat about. Brian from Rocky Mountain Discount Sports and I will chat about the latest and greatest going on, and you never really know who else is going to stop by. Be sure to tune in.
Sundays at 11 a.m. or 24/7 on demand on the K2 Radio app.
Sydney with Jair's Hunt for Life asking, are you concerned with the number of suicides in our city, county, and state? Are you tired of the stigma surrounding mental health, addictions, and other suicide ideations? Are you available when a person reaches out to you? Will you speak out against stigma, speak up for the person at risk, and speak hope to prevent suicide? If you answered yes to any of these, then you are a part of a growing global collaboration to stop suicide. This is Sydney from Jair's Hunt for Life asking you to be brave and speak out, speak up, speak hope, and save a life.
News and weather together at the top and bottom of every hour. This is Wake Up Wyoming with Glenn Woods on AM 1030 K2 Radio.
7:19 is the time. It's Wake Up Wyoming. So 888-97 Woods the phone number. That's 888-97-WOODS. Let's take a look at something I thought about yesterday. Now, normally I would say, hey, kids, leave the room. Or parents, get your kids out of the room. No. Bring your kids into the room, especially little boys. They're going to love this. They're constantly talking about your carbon footprint and your methane footprint as well. If you're especially if you're raising cattle like so many people do out west here. Okay, fine. Have you ever thought about how much you outgas when you eat certain foods? Hold on. Because those people who are believers in the climate apocalypse are really going to hate me.
So put on your respirator and let's fix that generator. And while we're out, we'll mend our fences too. See, I'm not afraid of dying, just got reasons for surviving. I want one more day in the apocalypse with you.
So yesterday I started thinking I was offered. I didn't realize this was coming up here. I don't track most holidays. I don't think about it. But hey, we got St. Patty's Day coming up this weekend. Oh, St. Patty's Day. Oh, okay. And I was asked, you want some corned beef and cabbage? Fine. And then right away we start making jokes about how much we outgas when we eat cabbage. And does the corned beef have anything to do with it? I don't know. But how much of a problem does that cause? And then that made me look up. This is why I said, bring the kids into the room, especially the little boys. They're going to love this. It's official, says the headline in front of me. A vegetarian or vegan diet makes you outgas more. Oh, hang on. Before I get into this, a vegetarian or vegan diet makes you... This means that those people, to save the planet and themselves, adopt a vegetarian or vegan diet, are actually doing worse for the planet than those people who eat meat. Don't give me this business about, well, cows, there's all of that methane they burp, and it comes out both ends. They mostly burp it, believe it or not. Well, if that's the case, we got to stop eating meat because all of that meat, we're destroying the planet. Yeah, well, if you're a vegetarian, you end up outgassing a whole lot too. You would outgas less if you ate meat. Here's the story. It's official. Plant-based diets make us gassier. So what's worse for the planet? Human or cow farts? That's what it says here. That's the headline. I thought about this. I went looking for the story, and lo and behold, the story says, we all know plant-based foods increase our wind. That's putting it politely. But with the take-up of this kind of diet, is it the best way for individuals to combat climate change? Could these gases potentially get into the atmosphere? Now, don't forget, if you open up a beer or a soda, you're letting CO2 out. So no more drinking carbonated beverages. Spanish scientists recently set out to examine the phenomena that's always been presumed. Plant-based diets cause people to, pardon me, fart more. Were you eating breakfast? I'm sorry. Researchers from and I love this, Liver and Digestive Disease Networking Biomedical Research Center. That's their name. Researchers from the Liver and Digestive Disease Networking Biometric Research Center studied a group of 18 healthy men. For the sake of homogeneity, only men were recruited. Ages 18 to 38. No. If you want to do this, you get Grandpa. Grandpa's far worse at this than, all right, anyway. Participants ate fiber-based enriched Mediterranean-rich diet and fruits and vegetables and grains, or a Western diet of fewer fruits and vegetables for 2 weeks. After the break, they switched diets on each other. And it was true. They concluded that if you are a vegetarian or a vegan, you stink. You outgas a lot more than anybody who's eating a meat-based diet. Researchers concluded that men who follow the plant-based diet outgas more and have larger stools. Oh, so vegans are full of it. Than men who follow a standard Western diet. The results reveal those following plant-based diets farted 7 times more per day, and so they counted. Okay. And had stools twice the size of those following a Western diet on average. So outgassing is a sign of a healthy diet, and many scientists say. Another study reported in Food Navigator concluded, oh, this is good for you. Yeah, but is it good for the planet? The study also revealed some graphic facts about plant-based diets and gas. Participants who replaced several meat-based meals per week with meat alternatives over a period of 4 weeks reported better and more frequent bowel movements with overall better consistency. But now this is not really what gets me. But it's interesting that what I want to know is not what's better for your digestive system or anything like that, but what is it doing for the planet? I don't really care. I don't think this is a problem, but those people who are vegans and vegetarians like to get all snooty about it and tell you that they're doing this to save the planet. Are you really? Story says it's likely, however, that the amount of gas created by humans is trivial, is what they're trying to say. It's estimated that it roughly translates to there being about 73 metric tons of methane and 1,000 cubic tons of carbon dioxide into the atmosphere by human beings outgassing daily, according to the Los Angeles Times Daily. Or so they say. See, they don't actually have a number on that. What they're doing is calculating by a computer model. So it says, pardon me, this is the language here, burps, not farts, are the problem. What's more, burps mainly from cows. That's where I told you the cow actually releases more methane from the other end, from belching more than anything else. Scientists therefore generally view that if people cut their meat consumption, that the resulting rising value and frequency of flatulence will be a positive for the environment. I don't buy that. Oh, no, it's okay if we outgas, but it's not okay for the animals, too. I see. I want to dig more into this. This is fascinating research to me. Jim in Laramie. Morning, Jim. I started calling Fiber 1 bars fart bars. If my boys or I eat one, it turns into a test. You guys, so are you guys having competitions? Is that what you're telling me, Jim? Okay. No, I'm all for that. Mom may hate this. Mom will hate the idea that you guys are having competitions. But the fact of the matter is, she doesn't want to admit it. Mom would win that competition. She doesn't want to get into it because ladies don't do that. But Mom will win the competition. So, what have we learned here then? Vegans and vegetarians contribute more to climate change personally by their outgassing than if you're just a flat-out meat eater. That's what I gather from this. Also, because of what I just read here, vegans are full of it. Yeah, they poop twice as much, literally twice as much. So there's your vegans and vegetarians for you. What good are they doing the planet? When they tell you that their diets are better for everybody else. Oh, now, that's not the only information that I have on this. I have 16 foods that make you outgas like crazy. So if you had the little boy and girl around, especially the little boys, and they're sort of, laughing at this, hang on, because after we get done with the local news, an update on your weather forecast, I got the 16 foods that will just make you as gassy as all get out, which to some people is just loads of fun, but it's also apparently killing the planet. Take that. vegans and vegetarians. Coming up on local news, right after local news update on the weather forecast, you and I get rolling back into it. 888-97 Woods, the phone number, 888-97-WOODS. Wake Up Wyoming.
Wake Up Wyoming with Glenn Woods on K2 Radio. Got something to say? Chat him on the Wake Up Wyoming mobile app or call 888-97-WOODS.
7:36 the time. It's Wake Up Wyoming. Hang on a second here. I got to go ahead and cue something up. I just realized as I was doing this that I did not. There, I have a cue ready to go. I'm going to surprise you with it. If you're just joining me, here's the deal. See, vegans and vegetarians have been very snooty toward us meat eaters. Well, we're trying to save the planet, Really? Yeah. Because I just read an article that, in fact, being a vegan or a vegetarian not only makes you more gassy, but, sorry for those eating breakfast, you poop twice as much. Is this really good for the planet? You were supposed to be getting rid of methane and CO2. What do you think that is? So if you're a vegan or a vegetarian, you want to save the planet, you should be eating more meat. Oh, I know the meat they outgas too, but let's face it, if everybody went to being vegans and vegetarians, and I wonder what bugs do for you too. I'll have to look that up since they want us on a bug diet. But okay, I looked up things that make us gassy. Now again, if you have a little boy, get him close to the radio, right up his alley. Little boys love stuff like this. Now, for those who've been complaining, I hate eating my vegetables. Well, there you go. Now you have an excuse. Some of the things that make you gassy like crazy: broccoli, cauliflower, cabbage, Brussels sprouts. See? You're destroying the planet by eating these things. All of these are particularly high in fiber and a type of carb your body can't digest, therefore. Oats and whole wheat bread, which is a shame because I can't do white bread. I love my whole grain bread. And then other thing, milk, cheese, but here's the big one for me, and yogurt. I love yogurts. However, that makes you very gassy. Now, vegans would say, aha, because that stuff that I just named involves animals. And vegans don't eat anything animal-based. Apples, bananas, and peaches. Okay. Beans, we knew. Nuts and beans. Sodas and seltzers. And then there's different kinds of proteins. Artificial sweeteners make you gassy. Fungus, prunes, and chestnuts. Okay. It says eat more kiwi and rice, things like that. Oh, and limit alcohol. Pfft, you don't tell people that, especially when you get around to St. Patty's Day. But okay. The good thing is, though, if you are eating a lot of vegetables, for those who want to save the planet and you want to eat a lot of vegetables, you're a vegan or a vegetarian, I have a solution. Forget the electric car.
America is facing an ongoing energy crisis. As oil gets scarcer, gasoline gets more expensive, and the planet suffers. Electric cars? Most of their electricity comes from coal-fired plants or nuclear reactors. So what's the answer? How about a car that's good-looking, affordable, and runs on clean, environmentally responsible natural gas? Your natural gas. Introducing the Flatula Backfire. It runs like the wind because it's running on wind. Here's how it works. Using state-of-the-art sanitary technology, Flatula captures all your emissions and efficiently channels them directly to a powerful turbocharged engine. It's clean energy, green energy, and best of all, it's renewable. The Backfire's range is practically unlimited. But if you should happen to run low, don't worry. You're never too far from a Flatula authorized service center where trained, qualified providers stand ready to fill your tank with the gas that's right for your driving needs. spatula backfire. It's not just a smart car. It's the fart car.
See, you want to go all electric now. But you see, if you're a vegan or a vegetarian, well, that means, according to research here, you are far more gassy. No wonder you stink. It's not just the incense you're around all the time. There's all sorts of reasons you guys just smell funny. But this is one of them. We now know if you ever get around a vegan or a vegetarian and you kind of go, they smell different. Yes, they do. And now we know exactly why, and they're harming the planet. But if rather than getting an all-electric car, they went for what you just heard advertised, well, then there you go. They have the last laugh because they're never going to run out of energy. You might be driving out in the middle of nowhere and run out of gas, but they will be full of gas. In which case, I would suggest, if you're driving one of these vehicles that you just heard advertised, bring a vegan with you on your road trip. Have lunch with them. Because that way, if at some point, you need to refill, there they are. And let's face it, eating that food, I would assume, is a lot less expensive.
Next time on Wyoming Hookin' and Huntin' Outdoors with host Drew Kirby.
Another great show presented by Rocky Mountain Discount Sports and Brooks Companies. Of course, as always, we talk with Janet and the Wyoming Game and Fish Department crew. You never know what we'll chat about. Brian from Rocky Mountain Discount Sports and I will chat about the latest and greatest going on, and you never really know who else is going to stop by. Be sure to tune in.
Sundays at 11 a.m. or 24/7 on demand on the K2 Radio app. Live and all across Wyoming. Wake Up Wyoming with Glenn Woods on K2 Radio. Join in at 888-97-WOODS or the Wake Up Wyoming
7:45 is the time. It's Wake Up Wyoming. Off I go to talk to Don Day from Day Weather. Okay, let me see if I can get this straight, Don. There's weather coming from different directions, and somehow or other it's going to get organized, disorganized, and then you'll figure out what's going to happen, right?
Yeah, there you go.
Okay.
That sums it up.
Well, I've watched all sorts of different forecasts and even listened to yours, and it sounds like it's just all about how it comes together.
Yeah, it's a combination of weather events that's going to produce the snowfall and rainfall across the state here over the next 3 days. It's just not one system, but this will happen where you have one system comes in, then another one comes into a different part of the country, and sometimes they sync up and work together. That's what's going to happen with this Pacific trough that's going to come into the Great Basin as we get into tomorrow, especially tomorrow night into Thursday and Friday. That's going to coincide with a bit of a cold front coming out of Canada. And so you're going to get that cold front working with that system in the Great Basin, because that Great Basin system, it's going to slide in and form right around the Four Corners area, but actually it's going to do what we call retrograde. It's actually going to go to the southwest and end up in southwest Arizona by Friday and into the weekend. And so that system will throw moisture towards us, and that moisture interacts with the cold front coming out of Canada. So if we didn't have that cold front out of Canada, we would see most of the moisture just miss Wyoming. But with that front working with that upper level low in the southwest United States, we are going to see some mountain snow. We're going to see some rain and snow developing out on the plains, and it's coming in pieces. There was a piece that came through last night, bringing some showers to the far west and south. There's another bigger piece that will bring some rain and snow showers to the west and south tonight and tomorrow morning. And then as we get into tomorrow night and Thursday, the bigger piece of this will produce pretty much statewide a chance for some snow. We don't expect this to be a big monster March storm, but there will be moderate to sometimes heavy snowfall along the I-80 corridor in south central and southeastern Wyoming tomorrow night and Thursday. Lighter amounts elsewhere.
What I do like about the sound of this is everybody gets a little bit of something, and especially some more in mountain areas that have been needing a little bit more.
Yeah, we'll see some snow in the northern mountains, which needs the snowpack boost, and the snowpack, which is doing good in the south, will get another boost. So when you can get these March storms that drop a good amount of moisture in the mountains, and then not too much on the plains, but a little bit, that's a good thing. We certainly would like to see more moisture come out onto the plains, and this storm will do that. And we've got other opportunities. We've got another storm system, larger one that's probably due mid to late next week, and we see another one towards the end of March. So there are more opportunities coming.
Okay, in the meantime, during all of this, I see little dips in temperatures, but then it just bounces right back up again.
Yeah, typical March, little bit of up and down. It is going to be a bit on the cool side this weekend. We're going to be under northerly winds aloft, so it's not going to warm up too quickly. So we're not going to be as warm this weekend as we were last weekend.
All right. Thank you, Don. Off we go to talk to Frank Gambino. Okay, my sister and I had, when we were little kids, in the back of the car, which was a station wagon, the Vista Cruiser.
Yes, I remember those.
My parents had those, yeah. So our seats, we called them, they were way in the back. My sister and I called them the backy back.
Because they faced to the back.
No, actually, we faced each other.
Really?
Yeah, that was a little different than other cars that I'd seen. But we actually looked at each other on two different benches. But we called that the backy back. Seatbelts?
Nah.
No. Who needs seatbelts?
No.
If I wanted to go up and visit Mom.
You just climb right through, yeah.
Climb right through. Mom could fold out a little table out of the glove box, which also came a coffee maker that she could plug in. That came with the car.
A coffee maker.
Yeah, it came with the car.
That plugged into the cigarette lighter.
Exactly, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, okay. So now, just some of the dangerous things that we did when we were, at that age, and we didn't know any better, but climbing around the car and making coffee while driving.
Sticking your head out the window.
Oh, sure, yeah. We've talked about this before. Dad would light up a cigarette and open up that little vent window.
Which may have helped.
Nah, my mom called that the smoking window.
Yeah.
Because he could go ahead and at least put the cigarette over by the window and let most of the smoke run out there. So I'm just going through all the dangerous things that we used to do in automobiles that don't anymore. I mean, even though the front had seatbelts in it, but I didn't often see people wearing them, and they didn't have the shoulder harness.
In driver's ed in high school, they showed this movie. It was called Death on the Highway.
Yeah.
I mean, it was pretty graphic, and they colored in the blood with like extra red in there, like to scare us kids. Like, don't do anything stupid.
Yeah,
and people still do.
Well, no,
and this is all from accidents in the 50s and the 60s.
Yeah, yeah. Now, I think we mentioned this yesterday. We were talking about the smart car. Yesterday, the smart car, if it gets into a wreck, it's done. You'll walk away. It sacrifices itself to save you because back then they didn't have crumple zones.
Okay. I look at those cars and I go, there's no way.
There's no way. But, yeah, people do walk away from those just fine because they're actually built. They also have airbags all over the place, stuff like that. Back in those days, the cars just took the hits.
Right. But they were also heavier and bigger.
Yes. But nothing crumpled away.
No.
It just took the hit head on. They also got 3 miles to the gallon?
How did we survive all that?
I don't know, Frank, but here we are.
Women's college basketball, the Wyoming Cowgirls went 1 and out in the Mountain West Tournament in Las Vegas, losing to Boise State last night, 62-54. The Cowgirls played a brutal fourth quarter. They were just 3 of 17 from the field and were outscored 22-10 in that final stanza. For the game, UW 4 of 17 from the three-point line. They turned the ball over 15 times, and turnovers have been an issue for this team all year long. Allison Fertig led the Cowgirls with 16 points. Melina Peterson with 13. Tess Barnes just 3 of 12 from the field. Wyoming has lost 6 of the last 8 games to finish this portion of the season. Now, obviously, the NCAA tournament is out at 16-14. They may get into not the WNIT, but the new NCAA sponsored tournament. So we'll see about that for the postseason. Wyoming Cowboys will play Fresno State in the Mountain West Conference tournament at noon tomorrow. The Pokes beat Fresno State over the weekend, so this is a game between the 8th and the 9th seeds. UW is 15-16. Fresno is 11-20. High school football, the Shrine Bowl rosters have been announced for that All-Star game that will be in Casper on June the 8th. For the North team, 4 players from the Trona were selected: Bo Russell, Joseph Sanchez, Noah Sides, and Tim Edmondson. Kelly Walsh with 2 players on the North roster: Caleb Ortberg and Boyce Caden. On the South team, 5 players from the East on board: Drew Jackson, Cam Hayes, Colby Dirks, Colby Olson, and Nathan Merritt. Cheyenne East had just had a trio. Cheyenne Central had a trio of players make the Shrine Bowl: Mason Counter, Miles Porwall, and Tyler Gare. In the National Football League, the former Denver Bronco quarterback Russell Wilson has apparently found the landing spot. ESPN is reporting that he'll sign a 1-year deal with the Pittsburgh Steelers. Wilson will get $1.2 million from the Steelers in 2024. The Broncos are still on the hook for the rest of his salary. That's $37.8 million. Denver will officially release him tomorrow, and the Broncos will take a big dead money hit on their salary cap, which would be $85 million over 2 years. Wilson's 2-year tenure with the Broncos after leaving Seattle wasn't exactly a match made in heaven. 11 wins and no playoff appearances. Also, the Broncos will reportedly jettison receiver Jerry Jeudy to Cleveland for 2 draft picks, a 5th rounder and a 6th rounder. Jeudy had just 2 touchdown catches last year, and overall he caught 54 balls for 758 yards in 2023. The Broncos selected Jeudy in the first round of the 2020 draft, and that's it in sports.
I actually look at it this way now. I've thought about it a little bit. I'm glad that Denver is going through all of these problems because you people who follow sports love to complain about things.
Yes, we do.
And boy, do they give you plenty to complain about.
Yeah, and especially if you don't like them.
Yes.
You know, and when they were good, they thought they were God's gift to football.
Oh, yeah.
For the last 8 years, they have not been God's gift to football.
Well, I told you, not being a sports fan, when I lived in the Tampa Bay area, the Buccaneers were 0 for 2 decades.
Yeah, and then they got good.
Yes. Then what happened?
Then they're still good now, not as bad as they were.
No, okay. So one of my favorite sayings: they almost don't suck.
Oh well, yeah, they're better than good.
Okay.
I mean, no, better than mediocre.
Better than mediocre.
Yeah.
Okay, that doesn't suck.
Yeah. Right.
All right. Thank you, Frank. Coming up on some local business, we have to take care. We're going to roll into news time after that. National local update on the weather forecast. Got a guest coming in the 8 o'clock hour. Then we'll get into the open phone segments. Wake up, Wyoming.
Cold.
Time is 8:06. It's Wake Up Wyoming. My name is Glenn Woods. Thanks for joining me. Open phones. We're going to put that off for just a little bit because I have a guest. And this is a topic we haven't talked about in a while, but sometimes court cases take just a little bit of time. Let's step back and take a look at a court challenge. It was during the COVID pandemic era, and the U.S. government was handing out money to all sorts of different kinds of people. Under the program, minority farmers and ranchers were made eligible for federal farm loan forgiveness, but not white farmers. Yeah, so that was challenged. Will Trackman is on the phone with me right now. Morning. Thanks for coming on the program.
Thanks so much. Greetings from Denver, Colorado.
Yeah, good. I'm sorry. I hope you get out of Denver okay. We understand how it is down there. So let's take a look at the case, how it progressed. First off, how it was brought to. I know Congress eventually had to rethink this as well. So after somebody complained about it, what happened?
So we complained about it all the way back in May of 2021. So we're talking almost 3 years ago. And then even after we complained, the United States Department of Agriculture still sent some checks out the door. And then you're right, people complained and the program got halted. We got an injunction out of a court in Tennessee. And finally, Congress threw in the towel. The Biden administration recognized they weren't going to win these lawsuits. And so remember the so-called Inflation Reduction Act?
Oh, yeah.
One little line of that bill repealed this farmer-rancher debt relief program, which had been giving out 120% debt relief, which is more than 100%. And so we are, everyone dropped their lawsuits except for us. And we said, well, you got to do something about the payments that already went out the door. You can't just throw in the towel and call it water under the bridge. You got to reverse those payments, or this case isn't dead yet.
Well, there's a problem then, because if you've given that kind of money to somebody and then come back months later, there's a good chance that it's gone.
Yeah, you're right. In terms of practicalities, it is going to be hard. Of course, these people have long-standing relationships with the government, so they're probably eligible for other subsidies or have other programs. And we're just saying, look at the ledger, make sure that the money's, at the end of the day, even out. But you can't just let the government off the hook and say that whatever dollars they got out the door don't count, because otherwise that incentivizes the government to do as much as they can out of the gate, to make secret payments, to make big payments, to go really rapidly with their unconstitutional behavior. And so you're right, in terms of practicalities, it's going to be a hard case to ultimately get there, but we haven't dropped it yet. So we filed our petition with the Supreme Court yesterday.
Well, all the practices with money that you're worried about the government doing, of course, they already do that everywhere else. This is just one case where you might actually get a chance to stop them. So how do you proceed from here? Are they going to actually be able to pull back the money? How does this work?
So we filed our petition with the U.S. Supreme Court just yesterday. So, these legal cases can take a while. It's certainly part of the frustration. And then the Supreme Court now gets a chance to decide whether or not to hear the case. And if they hear the case and we win, it would probably not even be till next year. But the first part of that process is filing the petition, which is what we did yesterday. And so we made the argument that the Supreme Court needs to step in, reverse the lower courts, both in Wyoming and in Denver, and say the case is not dead yet until you've addressed those payments and done something, maybe to claw them back or to address our clients. But otherwise, again, you've got the government with an incentive to do unconstitutional things quickly.
Right. And you mentioned Wyoming here, because I seem to remember the first time we talked about this. One of the plaintiffs in this was a Wyoming. It wasn't a lady that came from Wyoming? Am I remembering that right?
Exactly. Good memory. So Liesl Carpenter is our client. She's She's of Norwegian ancestry. She's American. And so she wasn't eligible for the program because she's a white rancher. So she and her husband ranch out of Laramie. And so when she thought, I've been devastated by COVID-19, I should be eligible for debt relief. They said, no. COVID-19 debt relief only applies to non-white farmers and ranchers.
I would love to know how that got passed through Congress, how that actually made it through. That would be just something fascinating, but that's a whole other topic here. When do you think, so we got to go all the way to the Supreme Court. When does this get picked up, or if it does at all?
Well, we're probably going to hear a response from the government over the summer, and then the court will likely make a decision in the early fall about whether or not to hear the case. And then you've got oral arguments, and then it takes a while to write the decision. So these things do take time. Like you said, the legal process can be slow and cumbersome. That's why it's been taking us almost 3 years to get to this point.
Right.
But hopefully we'll get a resolution soon, and then we'll put a deterrent on the government from doing this again.
Okay.
Because this is happening a lot of places.
Yeah. In fact, if you can win this case, I'd like to hire you to, pro bono, of course, to handle all other cases with the federal government. That should keep you in business, at least for the rest of your life.
Well, I'm sending you an engagement letter right now. Thank you so much for hiring me on the line.
Who are you with, by the way? What's the law firm?
Thank you for that. So my firm is called Mountain States Legal Foundation. We were formed in the late 70s. We do natural resources, equal protection, obviously, First Amendment free speech cases, and then Second Amendment gun cases. So our website is mslegal.org. We're always looking for supporters, but also good cases, because we aren't going to win this fight alone, fighting for the Constitution.
Right, and on that note, good cases, what kind of cases do you consider to be a good case? What are you looking for?
Well, I do mostly race and sex cases, so discrimination. Many of our cases are against white or Asian individuals. We do quite a few free speech cases. We're representing the Gadsden flag kid named Jaden Rodriguez, who wore a "Don't Tread on Me" patch on his backpack and then was kicked out of class because the allegation was that it was a racist patch.
Yeah.
And we're representing the Rocky Mountain gun owners in a case against Colorado's waiting period law for firearm sales. So it's a wide array of cases, but the common theme is that we are the Constitution's lawyers. We represent the fact that we still have these liberties, and we have to go to court in order to defend them.
Okay. Once again, how do they get hold of you?
Well, my name is Will Trackman, and I'm the general counsel at Mountain State Legal Foundation, mslegal.org. And we're always happy to talk to people and share our narrative and share our cases and talk through our work.
Okay. Well, thank you for coming on this morning. I appreciate the update.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
All right. So 888-97 was the phone number, 888-97-WOOD. As I had to sort of kick in the memory banks here to remember, that case was a few years ago. In fact, I remember the lady from Wyoming, from Laramie. She actually came on this program, and we talked about that case. And I really wonder, how is it? It's one thing to say because of COVID, we're going to do a loan forgiveness thing. And as you know, I was opposed to that for different reasons way back then. But the idea that it would apply to anybody except white farmers and ranchers. What? And who voted yes on that? And then it was signed by the president. Doesn't surprise me. So to have it pulled back, okay. But then I think the big problem is for the money that did go out anyway, because when they were told to stop the program, some money went out anyway. There's I really would like to know. So how do you go back?
Next time on Wyoming Hookin' and Huntin' Outdoors with host Drew Kirby.
Another great show presented by Rocky Mountain Discount Sports and Brooks Companies. Of course, as always, we talk with Janet and the Wyoming Game and Fish Department crew. You never know what we'll chat about. Brian from Rocky Mountain Discount Sports and I will chat about the latest and greatest going on, and you never really know who else is going to stop by. Be sure to tune in.
Sundays at 11 a.m. or 24/7 on demand on the K2 Radio app.
Hi, this is Jenny letting you know that JR's Hunt for Life offers free in-person suicide grief support groups at 5:30 p.m. the second Wednesday of the month, as well as peer-to-peer support for depression and other causes of suicide ideation at 500 South Walcott. Meetings are open to the public and are completely confidential. If you can't get out, then join our Facebook support page under the same title. JR's Hunt for Life is committed to saving lives and offering hope.
Take Glenn anywhere with the Wake Up Wyoming mobile app. Wake Up Wyoming with Glenn Woods on AM 1030 K2 Radio.
.818 is the time. It's Wake Up Wyoming. It's put off for a little bit because we had a guest. I'm going to continue on the topic we were just on with the guest, but we've reached the most dangerous time in the program. It's open phones.
Warning. Wake Up Wyoming is about to enter daily open phones. This means that anyone will be allowed to call in and talk about anything. I mean, imagine if we actually allowed you on air to say anything you wanted. Scary, right? Well, we're just that brand of crazy. If you are offended by what other people think, then maybe you want to tune out right about now. Just saying. If you should choose to call, just remember, the more funny and interesting you are, the longer Glenn will keep you on the line. Obnoxious jerks will be hung up on. Dave, all right, strap in, and let's do this thing.
888-97 Woods, the phone number. That's 888-97-WOODS. You can talk about what I'm talking about. Change the subject, fine by me. So if you're just listening to the guest I had, here's the Reader's Digest version. There was a rancher, it's a lady and her husband. They were in Laramie, Wyoming. We got into COVID time, and the Biden administration was going to hand out to farmers and ranchers relief money. This is relief money to forgive loans. White farmers and ranchers need not apply. And so this lady, farmer and rancher in Laramie, tried to apply, and she was told, no, you can't, you're white. And she cried racist. And after some court cases and so on, they were able to get the whole thing repealed, and even Biden administration backed off on it. I wonder how this ever passed in the first place. But still, some money went out. So the gentleman we have just a moment ago from the Mountain States Legal Foundation is now suing the Biden administration, going, no, go get that money back. You can't go out with that money anyway, even though you were told not to. Now, the Biden administration has a long history of just ignoring what the courts say. But all right, here's a related headline. Biden administration still spending ARP funds on things unrelated to COVID. The story says you probably remember when Joe Biden signed off on the American Rescue Plan 2021, right? Now, it's not just American Rescue Plan, but there was also the Inflation Reduction Act that had absolutely nothing to do with reducing inflation. And he at a later point, he just admitted that, no, the Inflation Reduction Act has not a thing to do with reducing inflation. In fact, it helped to increase it. But all right. The American Rescue Plan, that was nearly $2 trillion, massive boondoggle, that was allegedly intended to deliver, the story says, direct relief to families bearing out the brunt of the COVID-19 crisis. And that was a crisis. Remember, it was government that shut down the economy. It wasn't COVID that shut it down. Government ordered the shutting down of the economy, which should have never been allowed to happen. But okay, we're going to send direct relief to these families. They've been shoveling money out the door ever since, despite the fact The COVID thing has long faded into the rearview mirror. What you might find surprising is that they sent $600 million of those funds to the National Science Foundation. At first glance, it doesn't seem too shocking, right? I mean, after all, medicine, science, right? Besides that, they announced funds would be used to support individuals and institutions most strongly affected by the pandemic. Sounds great, but turns out none of that is where the money was going to. Once again, money was being funneled off into different things that didn't have anything to do with COVID whatsoever. By the way, there was, and this is a lawsuit right now that was won. We'll see what the Biden administration does. When Trump was in office, and we had a Republican House and Senate and Trump was able to get past building a border wall. So billions of dollars were put aside in an account to build a border wall. And then Biden gets into office and the Democrats, and they shut that down. Well, hold on a second. According to the lawsuit, they have to spend that money on a border wall. That law was never repealed. It was passed as a law and signed by a president. And the money is in the account. So they have to spend that money on building that border wall. And Biden has been trying to siphon that money off for other things. And the court came back and said, no, this is a law. You have to you're going to have to build the border wall with that money. Whether you like it or not, Mr. President, because unless the law is repealed, there's a law that says you have to. But okay. Let's get back to some of this money that it just turns out is being spent in some of the most odd places that in some cases the money was even stolen or just whitewashed. But a lot of this money, it's still going out too. I got to watch this next story is from AP News. I always have to be careful when reading AP News. Extreme bias, for one. The story says fraudsters use Social Security numbers of dead people and federal prisoners to get unemployment checks, collected those benefits in multiple states. And federal loan applicants weren't cross-checked against the Treasury Department database to get the very money that we're talking about that was supposed to happen during the time of COVID. People found ways to defraud the government. Criminals and gangs grabbed money, but so did the one U.S. soldier in Georgia, the pastor of a defunct church in Texas, a former state lawmaker in Missouri, and a roofer contractor in Montana. All of it led, the story says, to the greatest gift in U.S. history. Thieves plundering billions of dollars in federal COVID-19 relief intended to combat the pandemic. Now, again, some of this money is still going out today. An Associated Press analysis found that fraudsters potentially stole about $280 billion in COVID-19 relief fund, another $123 billion wasted or misspent, and again, that's still happening, combined with the loss that represents about 10% of the $4.2 trillion the government has so far handed out in relief aid. And the number just keeps on growing. So this is where, once again, I have the biggest problem. I mean, seriously, the biggest problem with giving the people in government, whether they're bureaucrats or they're the politicians, both really, the ability to manage anything or make any kind of decisions. I want, and more, as you're more of a libertarian thinker, I want the smallest possible government because I don't trust these people to do anything. We are massively in debt, coming up to $35 trillion. It's actually way beyond that. And your president just proposed a budget well over $7 trillion, which we don't have. And yet he's trying to convince you that he reduced the deficit by over $1 trillion, which is absolute nonsense. Okay, so this is an AP story that goes back about a year. I have an update on it that talks about the money that continues to disappear to this day. And once again, the president has been told to stop, and yet he doesn't seem to. I want to know what happens with the court case out of Texas where the president has been told there's a law on the books to build a border wall and money has been set aside to do it. Where is that money? Where's the wall? You're supposed to be doing that. That's the law on the books. No, Mr. President, you can't just say we're not going to do that. You're not allowed to do that. That's a law on the books, so you have to. So Biden is supposed to get out there and start construction, not him personally, we all understand, but he's supposed to get out there and get construction going on his border wall. Where's the border wall? Where's the money? Where's this COVID relief money that continues to go out? We don't know to where, and so much of it was lost through fraud anyway, and just mismanagement of the money. And then your president says he cannot protect the border because Congress didn't give him the authority and the money, which he has plenty of both ready to go there. You see where I'm going with all of this? I've spent a lot of time on this radio program talking about waste, fraud, and abuse by your government. And this is what happens when government just starts handing out money, which it's still to this day. Earlier this morning, if you missed it, there's your own Senator Lummis is working on this bill, which I have to talk to her about next time it's here, because this bill would make sure that people who are low income, who have problems with their homes, can go ahead and get money to fix up their homes. So they're not living in some place that, well, should have been condemned a long time ago. And I suppose you and I are really sympathetic to them. I really am. But you can see what I'm talking about with waste and fraud, this kind of loss of money, that I really don't want government handing out money to fix up homes from people who probably have a legitimate need. But you know what's going to happen with that money? Right. It's going to disappear into the ether again. Here comes more waste and more fraud, and very few homes will ever be fixed up. All right, coming up on 8:30, local news coming your way, right after local news update on your weather forecast. Then you and I are going to roll back into it again. It is open phone, so 888-97 Woods, the phone number, 888-97-WOODS. You can talk about what I'm talking about. You can change the subject, whatever you want to do. I'll just kind of roll with the whole thing. It's Wake Up Wyoming.
Download the Wake Up Wyoming mobile app. Listen anywhere and chat live with Glenn during the show on AM 1030 K2 Radio.
8:36 the time. It's Wake Up Wyoming. So 888-97 Woods, the phone number. That's 888-97-WOODS. Talk about what I'm talking about. Change the subject. That'd be fine. I'll just roll with it. Also, you hear me talking to people like Glen Rock Garden Girl in Glen Rock, Wyoming, and Bears and Mills, to name a few. And then there's some people out in Nebraska and down in Colorado, but all across the state of Wyoming. These people are texting me using the Wake Up Wyoming app. So what you do, if you haven't done it already, your app store for your mobile device, just type in Wake Up Wyoming. It's free. It drops in. There's a lot of things you can do, even listen to old programs as a podcast. But then hit the chat option and send me text messages. And I answer both on and off the air. Okay, so what I'm doing now is topic hopping. I'm going to be jumping a lot of different topics because I've got some house cleaning to do. And while I'm jumping from topic to topic, you can jump in and change the subject too. I'll just roll with it. All right, so from Babylon B, January, I like this. January 6th, protesters request to be called undocumented tourists. Okay, fine. If we're going to call illegal immigrants undocumented migrants, and that's what they insist that we call illegal immigrants, even though, or illegal aliens is a better way to, they're alien to this country, and they didn't come through the proper channels, they snuck in illegally. So that would make them an illegal alien, right? But we can't say that, so they're undocumented migrants. Okay, fine. January 6 protesters who were in the Capitol are to be called undocumented tourists. Okay? All right. No, don't give me any grief about that now. You're not allowed to. That's if I can't give you any grief about undocumented migrants, and you can't, I don't want to hear it. All right, next up. You might remember a while back there was an atheist in Gillette that had a problem with the city council having a moment of prayer before they opened up city council meetings. And that prompted a lawsuit, right? Okay, here's the latest on this from Cowboy State Daily. A Gillette man who filed a $24 million lawsuit. I don't know where the $24 million comes from on this, but all right. Against the city and mayor for not letting him give the atheistic invocation at a city meeting, has lost his appeal to the Wyoming Supreme Court. So his idea is if you're going to let all these different, Christians and whoever else come out and lead everybody in prayer before the meeting, well, then you got to let the atheists do it too. And they said no. And so he sued for $24 million, and he lost that. So he tried to appeal it to the Wyoming Supreme Court. Well, no. Bruce Williams sued Gillette mayor last spring on claims the city leaders wouldn't let him deliver a portion of the invocation before the city council meeting, not even part of it. On behalf of Wyoming atheists, Williams gave the one invocation per year for at least the past 9 years. In 3 of those years, some of the city council members walked out during what he was saying. People had a problem with what he was saying, so they just got up and walked out of the room. Williams also alleged the city council required him to recite the Pledge of Allegiance at the meetings. He asked a district court judge to block the city's reciting of the pledge until Congress removes "under God" from it. The district judge dismissed the lawsuit, saying the city and the mayor have sovereign immunity from being sued, barring certain exceptions, but Williams didn't show any of the known exception when filing his complaint. So he's not allowed to file under current law. And the Wyoming Supreme Court has agreed with this. So, quote, we acknowledge Mr. Williams' effort to convince us to allow his complaint to proceed. However, the decision as to waiving immunity for gubernatorial entities belongs to the Wyoming legislature, not the court. So in other words, sir, if you want to change that law, you're going to have to go to the Wyoming legislative body to change it. The court can't help you there. The court enforces the law. They don't change or write law. I wish more courts around the country, including the U.S. Supreme Court, would hear that. Wyoming Constitution says the state and subdivisions are immune from lawsuits except as the legislator authorizes them. For example, the legislator can waive its sovereign immunity in certain cases if lawmakers find it important to let residents sue on those grounds. The legislature and the court wrestled with continuous state of immunities for almost a century, says the High Court order. But in 1979, the legislature enacted the Wyoming Government Claims Act, which offers specific modes and occasions when people can sue the government. And believe it or not, I agree with that, because if not, boy, it would be nonstop lawsuits over all sorts of frivolous things. And in part, sometimes legit reasons, but also in part because people see the government as having deep pockets, whether they do or not. So Williams had alleged the Gillette City officials violated his constitutional rights and therefore fell outside official duty scope within the Wyoming's Government Claims Act. The Wyoming Supreme Court disagreed, saying the mayor and other officials were acting in their official capacities as they attended council meetings and limited the quantity of Williams' invocations. So, and it's not, here again, it's not that the city of Gillette was saying to him, you can't get up there and do the atheist prayer. You can. They let him. They let the atheists do an atheist prayer to open up the meeting. Yes, some people didn't like it and they would get up and leave until he was done. But they let him do it anyway. So you can't say that he didn't get his chance to step in and deliver his point of view. All right, so the Wyoming Government Act claims it authorizes, injury lawsuits against the government. but it's not a tool for launching civil rights claims, says the order. So if government did something and you were injured by it, I mean physically injured, monetarily injured by it, okay, you might be able to sue over that if it was the government's mistake, but this is different. So it says here, the proper law on which to base civil rights claims or constitutional wrongs is a 150-year-old federal law. Quote, Mr. Williams recognized 1983 as a vehicle for relief as his appellate belief, but he did not seek relief through the state or statute in his complaint. The high court order doesn't contemplate whether Williams has a chance of winning a lawsuit by filing a case in federal court, which he might try to do. I still want to know where he gets the $24 million from. If he wants to settle this, why the $24 million? What does that do? Williams had argued in earlier court documents that preceding cases of law should have allowed him the right of action against Gillette. So what the court's saying is you can't even sue, not in this case. You don't even have the opportunity to. But still, and this guy, to me, I'm sorry, he just sounds annoying. The city, to repeat myself, was trying to help him out. You're an atheist. You don't like it when we do a religious prayer. You want to do an atheist prayer. Fine, go ahead. He doesn't want to do the Pledge of Allegiance along with it because it says under God in there. I'm thinking this Williams guy needs to find better stuff to do with his time. My thought is you want to be an atheist? Go be an atheist if that's what you want to do. You're perfectly allowed to be and no one's saying you can't. That's what a free country is about. Be an atheist if you want.
Next time on Wyoming Hookin' and Huntin' Outdoors with host Drew Kirby.
Another great show presented by Rocky Mountain Discount Sports and Brooks Companies. Of course, as always, we talk with Janet and the Wyoming Game and Fish Department crew. You never know what we'll chat about. Brian from Rocky Mountain Discount Sports and I will chat about the latest and greatest going on, and you never really know who else is going to stop by. Be sure to tune in.
Sundays at 11 a.m. or 24/7 on demand on the K2 Radio app.
Hi, this is Jenny letting you know that JR's Hunt for Life offers free in-person suicide grief support groups at 5:30 p.m. the second Wednesday of the month, as well as peer-to-peer support for depression and other causes of suicide ideation at 500 South Walcott. Meetings are open to the public and are completely confidential. If you can't get out, then join our Facebook support page under the same title. JR's Hunt for Life is committed to saving lives and offering hope.
Got something to say? Call 888-97-WOODS or chat with Glenn on the Wake Up Wyoming mobile app from K2 Radio.
8:48's the time, sitting in the studio with Frank Gambino. So we're coming. I didn't know this, Frank. We're coming up on yet another holiday.
St. Patrick's Day.
Yes, okay. So right away, someone turned to me and said, did you want corned beef and cabbage? I'm like, fine with it.
I was okay with it.
Yeah, okay.
When I was growing up in Chicago, I know this is a bad story, is that when you were about 16 years old, maybe even 15, on St. Patrick's Day, those Irish bars let you go in and have a couple of beers.
Even at that age? Okay.
Yeah, even at that age.
Yeah.
And it was, it's no problem.
Yeah.
And everyone had corned beef. Every bar had corned beef and cabbage.
Sure.
The corned beef I can handle.
Yeah.
The cabbage has no taste.
Yeah,
unless I'm missing something in this whole thing.
It's like that saying, which I really like, that when it comes to people who like eating lobster, I like butter too. Basically, it's just there to hold the butter. Okay. So I came up with this one, and this is from our friend down the hall, Drew. So since a lot of people are going to go to bars because that's what you do on St. Patty's Day.
Well, yeah.
Okay, rule 1, tip the bartender.
Yes.
Okay. Nothing on the bartender's side of the bar should interest you.
Right.
Really?
Well, in terms of human people, no, just leave them alone.
Okay. Don't crowd strangers at the bar.
Yeah.
Okay, I guess. Don't complain about drink prices. Don't like them, leave.
No, yeah. It's St. Patrick's Day. You're having a good time.
If you're playing the jukebox, play to the crowd. Now, my only complaint is if you want to play your favorite song and nobody else likes your favorite song, just don't play it 10 times in a row.
Oh, no, that's what we did in college.
Yeah.
We used to play the same song 10 or 15 times in a row in a crowded bar, very, very small, and just watch everybody go, I can't take it anymore.
Not one more time. Let me see. There's no need to rip up anything that's paper at the bar. A lot of people do that.
Yeah.
The bathroom isn't yours. Treat it that way. If it's crowded, know your order. Oh, get to the point.
Yes.
Walk up there. What do you want?
3.
No. Yeah, 3 of these now.
Today,
Yes, okay. In fact, I was at a salad bar a little while ago, and I'm walking down the salad bar, and I'm just going boom, 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 boom. And the lady behind me goes, boy, you know what you want. I said, no, lady, what I'm doing is moving the line along.
Yeah.
Okay, so turn the phone on silent or walk outside to talk. By the way, do the same thing in movie theaters.
Exactly. All right, we'll talk about women's college basketball. The Wyoming Cowgirls went 1 and out in the Mountain West Tournament in Las Vegas. They lost to Boise State last night, 62-54. Cowgirls had just a brutal fourth quarter where they were just 3 of 17 from the field and outscored 22-10 in that final stanza. For the game, UW 4 of 17 from the three-point line, and they turned the ball over 15 times. And turnovers has been an issue for this team all year long. Allison Fertig led the Cowgirls with 16 points. Melina Peterson had 13, but Tess Barnes was 3 of 12 from the field. Wyoming has lost 6 of their last 8, so they're 16-14. And while the NCAA tournament is completely out of the picture, they may get into not the WNIT, but a new NCAA-sponsored postseason basketball tournament. We'll see. Wyoming Cowboys will play Fresno State in the Mountain West Conference tournament tomorrow at noon. The Pokes will just beat Fresno State over the weekend, so this is a game between the 8th and the 9th seeds. UW is 15-16, and Fresno State is 11-20. In high school football, the Shrine Bowl rosters have been announced for that All-Star game. That'll be in Casper on the 8th of June. For the North team, 4 players from Natrona were selected. Bo Russell, Joseph Sanchez, Noah Sides, and Tim Edmondson. Kelly Walsh had 2 players on the North roster, Caleb Ortberg and Boyce Caden. And the South team had 5 players from Cheyenne East on board. Drew Jackson, Cam Hayes, Colby Dirks, Colby Olson, and Nathan Merritt. And Cheyenne Central with a trio of players that will be in the Shrine Bowl, Mason Counter, Miles Porwell, and Taylor Gare. In the National Football League, former Denver Bronco quarterback Russell Wilson apparently has found the landing spot. ESPN is reporting he will sign a 1-year deal with the Pittsburgh Steelers and will get $1.2 million from the Steelers, which is the veteran minimum salary. And the Broncos are on the hook for the rest of his salary. That's about $37.8 million. Denver will officially release him tomorrow, and the Broncos take on a big dead money hit on their salary cap, which will be $85 million over 2 years. Wilson's 2-year tenure with the Broncos after leaving Seattle wasn't exactly a match made in heaven. 11 wins and no playoff appearances. You know, Glenn, on St. Patrick's Day, I just can't stand green beer.
No?
I can't stand it.
Does it come out the same color? Because I know regular beer comes out the same color.
They put dye in it.
Yes.
So when everyone doesn't drink the green beer, what do you think that they're selling for half price on like Monday?
Oh, okay.
Green beer that's been like, oh, please.
No,
stop.
Okay.
Stop.
So, okay, then what about Chicago?
They dye the river green, and it's a bright green. It's green to begin with, but that murky green, and they put that stuff in there. It's like, well, that's kind of cool.
What are they using to dye it with?
But I don't.
Yeah, no idea.
No,
okay,
it's a lot.
It's a lot.
This boat goes all the way down, like for a good mile, and just throws this stuff in there, and it goes away in about 2 days. 3 days.
Okay. It's probably something all natural, biodegradable.
I'm sure it is. It's a filthy river to begin with. Who cares?
Oh, that's true. No matter what they're putting in there, it's probably an improvement.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you, Frank. All right, coming up on some local business we got to take care of. We're going to roll into news time after that. National local update on the weather forecast. You and I get back into it again. 888-97 Woods, the phone number. It's 888-97-WOODS. It's Wake Up Wyoming. The time. It's Wake Up Wyoming. It's a Tuesday. And it's open phone. So 888-97-WOODS is the phone number, 888-97-WOODS.
Today's show was sponsored by Flashlight Sunglasses. Looking cool in the dark has never been easier.
Don't even know why you would want to order one of those.
Warning, this show contains reference to guns, liberty, limited government, low taxation, the cult of climate change, free thinking, cigar smoking, short people, rubber chickens, Karen's bureaucracy, liberal buzzwords, tour runs, traffic, toilets, terrible jokes, and more. No apologies will be issued. Guest callers may express any opinion they want without fear of being canceled. Unless you're a loudmouth jerk like Dave, then Glenn will hang up on you. Strap in, hold on to your coffee, and feel free to participate.
This disclaimer does not refer to every person named Dave. Just one particular Dave from San Francisco. We know a lot of Daves. They call this show all the time, and they're great people. So don't call this program and complain that we use your name. That would be a real Dave move, Dave.
So 888-97-WOODS the phone number. That's 888-97-WOODS. You can talk about what I'm talking about. Change the subject. Fine by me. NIMBY. You know what that means. Not in my backyard. Well, title of this article, Revenge of the NIMBYs. Skeptical residents now and the front line against wind and solar, which, by the way, we've had several people call from around areas in Wyoming, especially those down near I-80, around the Laramie area, in that area, that are just complaining about huge wind farms that are not just destroying their view but causing other problems in the area. Well, here's the story. It reads, it's taken a long time, but there's been quite a shift in the face of the traditional not in my backyard, or NIMBY, as it's affectionately known. Decades ago, the acronym was used most exclusively to describe the upper middle class and wealthy Americans who would come pouring out of the hilltop islands and wherever they might be to protest something that they said was good for everybody else. Great example of that. Go off the coast of Nantucket, where the Kennedys live, for example. These are big proponents of offshore wind turbines, but not in their view. It would destroy their multi-million-dollar property value. Classic example of that, right? It also gave rise to exasperated, eye-rolling banana, as it's called. Build absolutely nothing anywhere near anyone. I hadn't heard of that before, but there it is. Thanks to infrastructure gridlock, the story says, caused by the NIMBYs and their political powers when they got their dander up, it didn't matter what was needed at the time or how minimally or intrusive the plans were. If well-heeled NIMBYs declared or decided it affected their sensibilities, you might as well just scrap the whole project. And that was very typical, especially if you had enough money and political influence to say, not here. Again, as here in the state of Wyoming, we've seen there's been residents of some areas, please don't put those things up in our backyard, but they didn't have the political power or the money really to stop it. If it was something particularly distasteful or annoying, as when the original NIMBYs became enamored, says the story, with environmental causes and began to want wind farms, recycling plants, and solar projects to save the planet. Those didn't happen in places like Martha's Vineyard and Napa Valley itself. So this ugly impact gets shunted off to where people, again, don't have the money or the political power to do anything about it. Particularly when governments were unafraid. In one place, carbon capture pipelines in Iowa and the Dakotas, and up in Gillette, Wyoming. All right, so here's sort of a reverse NIMBY. This is a base. It's get past wind turbines. There we go. Ingredients. Okay. Quote, we all know clean energy is good for the environment, says this one person. Well, no, okay. I object to that right away. We don't all know this. Your wind and solar panels, wind turbines and solar panels are not clean and they're not good for the environment, but okay. But what's really important here locally is the economic picture. Our communities We have $800 million in paid local landowners, $1 billion of tax revenue into local communities, 3,600 short-term and 300 permanent jobs created over the 30-year lifespan of this wind project. Our local economic impact, well, it's going to really devastate them. That's what they're worried about. So you can't put up wind and solar because it's going to impact us economically, is what they're arguing about here. Okay, so that's why landowners should consider a bit more about what, and also politicians, about where they're going to put what. All right, so the story says, the mood in the room following the less than 15 minutes of a presentation was fairly subdued, with many in attendance expressing bewilderment that there was no public question and answer. They're just going to go ahead and put in a wind farm there. We are continuing to assess the fluid interconnection of the situation. That's doublespeak for you. For our Winding Star Wind project in our county, said the director of public engagement for Apex. He told a recent story that was, well, emailed around in this county. After first leasing and then selling the land, the Apex, again, clean energy company, this is not clean energy, better known by his commercial wind energy project name, Winding Star Wind, has terminated its lease with the county landowners. The project generated a significant amount of local opposition since the first land agents came along. They were all set to do this. But once again, if you have the money and the political pull, you can get rid of this. One winter afternoon, dozens of local residents poured into a drafty little village hall, the story says, tucked away from the countryside, where they were wearing thick coats and a whole bunch of frowns. Meet the NIMBY, locally polite, mostly gray-haired, and a nightmare for local government. They hammered out details at global climate summits to get this stuff moved away. In other words, these are people that are all in favor of wind and solar energy, and they love the idea of it and saving the planet, until it starts affecting their property values, until you want to surround their homes with it. In the UK, the largest solar development, a mega farm, which has a potential, they say, to power about 330,000 homes, which we know it will never do anywhere near that. We know that. It would take over 3 hours to walk from one end to the next. That's how big they wanted this place. And local residents were saying it's just too big. Not only is it visibly offensive, but think of what it's going to do if you want to save the planet. What are you doing to the land to build a facility that big? And to all the creatures that lived on that land. Once again, things sound really great. It's much like watching people in cities, counties, and some states who decided that they were going to be sanctuary cities. And it sounded great to do it until they tried to do it and found out how much it just didn't work. These are people from Nantucket to this neighborhood I just read to that province in the UK that all thought these projects sounded wonderful as long as you built it somewhere else. Then as soon as you start building it near our land, oh, well, I mean, hell no. What are you thinking? Especially something that big. Are you crazy? In the state of Wyoming, there are highways that need your attention. You can adopt a highway.
Morty and I, we couldn't have a highway of our very own, so we adopted one.
Just make sure Wyoming highways stay clean and well maintained.
Next time on Wyoming Hookin' and Huntin' Outdoors with host Drew Kirby.
Another great show presented by Rocky Mountain Discount Sports and Brooks Companies. Of course, as always, we talk with Janet and the Wyoming Game and Fish Department crew. You never know what we'll chat about. Brian from Rocky Mountain Discount Sports and I will chat about the latest and greatest going on, and you never really know who else is going to stop by. Be sure to tune in.
Sundays at 11 a.m. or 24/7 on demand on the K2 Radio app.
You may not think of flu as a serious disease, but complications can lead to severe illness, hospitalization, and even death. The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention recommends everyone 6 months and older get a flu vaccine every year. Vaccines are available at doctor's offices, pharmacies, and local health departments. Protect yourself and your loved ones this flu season. Get a flu shot today. Learn more at cdc.gov/fightflu.
Got something to say to Glenn? Use the chat on the Wake Up Wyoming mobile app and get your opinions straight to the studio with K2 Radio.
9:18 is the time. It's Wake Up Wyoming. If it sounds a little bit different this morning, kind of because at our home studios here, we had some kind of a weird, and it's too much to go into, weird computer problem that started with something that happened last night and cascaded to this morning. I could go into it, but never mind. The people who are trying to fix the problem accidentally fixed most of it. And I mean that. They accidentally fixed most of it. They don't know what they did, but so if you're listening to me this morning, that sounds a little bit different. Yeah, they've been trying to sort through some problems, and most of it's fixed right now. All right, St. Patty's Day coming up this weekend, right? Evansville, Wyoming, to extend St. Patrick's Day bar hours. So if you really want to get toasted, people in Evansville will be able to stay out and party a bit later. St. Patrick's Day, Town Council voted on Monday. I think they voted that because they want to stay out and drink later, and they just want to make it legal. According to Evansville ordinances, business like liquor licenses, are required to close by midnight on Sundays. St. Patrick's Day happens to fall Sunday, March 17th. However, ordinances, they can go ahead and extend hours. They can change things. So now instead, you can stay in the bar until 2 a.m. So if you've been wanting to talk to your Evansville city council person, you can find them in the bar up till 2 a.m. I'm just saying that they passed it. That's where they're going to be. All right, next one. We just finished a Wyoming legislative session here. A couple of stories that are big news to me. One, you know, I'm a huge proponent of charter schools and school vouchers. The more choice you have, the better. All right. The headline is Governor Gordon vetoed a charter school bill. So March 7th, Governor Gordon vetoed a bill that would have given charter schools the ability to apply for status as local education agencies. If they had passed, charter schools would have been able to apply on their own behalf for the administrator of federal and state grants. But that would have repealed the Wyoming Charter School Authorizing Board's ability to serve as the same function that had the opportunity to demonstrate any kind of effectiveness. So Gordon said repealing the Charter School Authorization Board before it had a chance to perform any kind of a critical accountability, he said, is a bad oversight mechanism for charter schools. So Governor Gordon will have a chance to come on the program. Last time he was on this program, which is about midway through the session, we talked about him coming on the program at the end of the session, and he will. And he'll get a chance to explain why he vetoed that. He didn't veto a whole lot this time around. Here's what he did pass. I'm just going to kind of run through those. Let me see. Open banking amendments. Now, there's a whole list of them here. Our man in Cheyenne, Doug Randall, went ahead and put up this list. It's on the Wake Up Wyoming website. So I'm just going to read through them. Rather than telling you what the state bill is, go to the Wake Up Wyoming site, or Miss Mary will alert this out at some point, and you can just go through and click on the bill and read it for yourself. State land, oil, and gas leases operating requirements was passed, signed by the governor. Animal reimbursement program, I don't know what that is. School finance, regional cost adjustments in the study, sales tax administration, state forestry, good neighbor positions, sage grouse implementation with landowners, public retirement accountability, Natural Resource Preservation Act, electricity rates for costs that do not benefit Wyoming. Now that I do want to get into with the governor. And health insurance for volunteers. Okay, all of those bills, and I know that's quite a lot to go through, and most of those titles I don't think actually reflect exactly what the bill stands for. But the governor was worried, and when he was on his program last time, there was money that the state was going to give him so he could spend as he saw fit when it came to Wyoming energy projects. And that included projects like carbon sequestration, but also wind and solar, whatever else he thought. And, you know, the governor and I, and many of you disagree with the governor on his ideas about Wyoming energy, especially when it comes to carbon sequestration. Well, okay, that money originally was going to be cut by the legislator. They weren't going to give me anything unless it came with oversight. They finally gave about half of that money back to him. What I want to know is, did it come with the oversight? So, again, we'll see. I want to also get, if I can, I haven't talked to him in a little while, but Senate President Ogden Driscoll, see if I can get him on, and then also the Speaker of the House on, if I can. I also want to take a look at what we passed. There was some property tax reform passed. Now, that's been a big problem. If you're unfamiliar with this, if you're a renter, not a landowner, in Wyoming, we have some of the lowest taxes in the nation. In fact, we don't even have a state income tax. But then property taxes started to spike, as many of you know. And the reason why is people with money moved into Wyoming and bought homes for outrageous amounts of money, which would spike the property value artificially. And all of a sudden, property taxes had gone through the roof. How do you fix that? Especially because some people can't afford that. How do you fix that? There were a lot of solutions that were tossed up. And I believe, if I remember right, about 4 different bills on property tax relief made it through to the governor. So what I want to know is, what did he sign and what didn't he sign? What are we going to get out of that? The one, and again, last time Governor Gordon was on this program, we talked about it. He was even interested. And you and I talked about this for several days on the air. The idea of getting rid of the property tax for most homeowners and replacing it with a 2-cent sales tax, which to me is a much better way to go. And there was a lot of interest in the idea. But as it started to go through the legislative process in the House of Representatives, it got watered down and watered down. Eventually, Mr. Harshman, who had initially brought the bill forward, decided to resubmit the bill for consideration at the House of Representatives. And he resubmitted it as it originally was written. And then the whole thing just died. But even the governor had said he was interested in taking a look at that. What I liked about it, and we talked about this quite a bit, is, as you know, if you own property, assessing the value of your property is a complicated process. So complicated that many tax assessors don't even understand the process. They have to show up on your property, look at things, put their perceived value into a program, which spits out how much you're going to have to pay in property taxes. A lot of that is subjective, and I haven't yet met anyone who assesses property taxes that completely understands the process. It's a mess. It really is a mess. To get rid of that process in favor of, you buy a shirt, you need a new shirt, you go buy a shirt or a pair of socks, and 2% of that sales goes to your county taxes rather than property taxes. Everybody understands that, which is one of the reasons why I like that. And since most of our taxes in Wyoming, as far as sales taxes, are paid by tourists, not by local residents, that seems like a much better idea. Growing up in Florida, as I did, the reason Florida does not have a state income tax is because Florida taxes tourism, which works out a lot better for the state of Florida. So, they haven't gotten rid of property taxes, but they certainly got rid of any idea of an income tax because of that. So that was a disappointment maybe next time around, but I want to see what does the governor sign off on, because some property tax relief is going to come. It just is a matter of, out of the last time I heard 4 bills, which of the 4 or do all 4 make it through to give you some kind of property tax relief. So again, when able, because we've just finished this legislative session, I'll get a hold of the governor, the president of the Senate, Ogden Driscoll, the Speaker of the House as well, and see if I can get them on this program. We can have a little conversation about what passed, what didn't, and why. And I tend to like to have them on the air one at a time, and it's only because bringing them on all at once, it's difficult sometimes to distinguish who's talking because you can't see it. It's radio. You can't see us. So I tend to bring on people one at a time, and then I just ask the questions and then let them talk. And then we do open phones afterwards, so you guys can go ahead and tear apart everything they said. All right, coming up on 9:30. So local news is coming your way. Right after local news update on the weather forecast, you and I go rolling back into it again. Phone number is 888-97-WOODS, 888-97-WOODS. It's Wake Up Wyoming.
Wake Up Wyoming with Glenn Woods on K2 Radio. Join the conversation at 888-97-WOODS.
9:36 the time. It's Wake Up Wyoming. Okay, a study is being done, and this I think is probably one of the best studies we have tried, scientists have tried, in many decades. Scientists have been slowly reintroducing small groups of well-adjusted human beings into society. Yeah, I know, right? This is just going to freak some people out. You take some normal, well-adjusted human beings. I mean, people who think clearly, who know to be responsible with their lives, go get a job. Don't be stupid with your money. Don't drink too much. Don't do drugs. Good moms and dads. Perfectly normal, well-adjusted people. And they've been going to different various places around the country and just quietly releasing them into society. Yeah, when the woke crowd finds out about this, they're going to freak out. So New York was when they first tried that. I wonder if they've released any in Wyoming. I don't know. In an ambitious attempt, the story reads, to revive a population long considered to be on the brink of extinction, scientists announced that they have been slowly reintroducing normal, well-adjusted human beings back into society, according to an official at Cornell University, where for the past 18 years, researchers have operated an enclosed sanctuary for humans who have been level-headed and make a habit of thinking before they speak, right? It was an endangered species group. I mean, people who actually live, and we'll put this in air quotes, normal lives. It was like some game preserve for conservatives. I don't know. Anyway, quote, we've worked for years to stabilize our society's dwindling population of sane, generally reasonable people with the confines that was safe for them, a refuge, if you will. Finally, seeing their numbers start to bounce back a little, they decided to start slowly releasing them back into the general population. Even if this small group of humans is able to deal with the negative emotions in a destructive manner, they'll flourish. So in other words, they have to deal with what society has become. That's going to be the hard part. Can they deal with what society has become once they get out there? I think they probably would be able to. They're more level-headed. Or do they want to go running back to the refuge? I can't stand it out here. Wait, hang on. Do you think that maybe the game preserve was Wyoming? And then they've been releasing people from Wyoming out into the rest of the world? I don't know. I mean, look at Colorado. Okay, anyway. Our hope is with that in a century or so, the traits for making for long-term decisions, for example, being able to tolerate other people in different opinions and things like that will propagate. Hard-working people who show up for work on time. Eventually, if they're successful at mating, they might be able to change the population. Prior to these conservation efforts, it's been believed that even-tempered people with sound judgment and the ability to put the needs of others before themselves had dwindled within the past few centuries. And many thought it had gone completely extinct. Experts widely agree that without isolation, protection, and captive breeding programs, the remaining thoughtful, foresighted individuals would have been totally wiped out. Now, personally, I would like to participate in the captive breeding programs, but maybe that's just me. While admitting that the project's reintroduction phase is complex and dangerous in some cases, they've decided that it was time to reestablish this foothold in society. Quote, obviously, we've taken great precautions before releasing these individuals into an environment where they demonstrate good sense, open-mindedness, basic human empathy and dignity, things like that are now considered signs of weakness. He noted that to ease the transition during their first few months of acclimating to society, the endangered population would be kept away from most television content, most of what's on the internet, advertisement, and all other forms of media. For example, we've trained them for the inevitable encounters they will face with large groups of incapable people, especially those that are incapable of separating their emotions when they get into a discussion with somebody about things they disagree with. Wow, this is going to be tough. Though researchers have expressed cautious optimism for reintroduction into the programs, the scientists have noted that the number of areas in the U.S. capable of sustaining well-adjusted human beings has drastically decreased, according to experts. There's almost no chance the population will ever thrive anywhere again in the state of Colorado or California or New York or Washington State or Illinois. So, quote, even this small group of humans able to deal with their negative emotions, if they manage to flourish, there's still no telling whether the next generation will be able to survive. There's a lot of unknown variables. See, it's a part of a great experiment. It really is. So I wish them well. I hope this works.
Next time on Wyoming Hookin' and Huntin' Outdoors with host Drew Kirby.
Another great show presented by Rocky Mountain Discount Sports and Brooks Companies. Of course, as always, we talk with Janet and the Wyoming Game and Fish Department crew. You never know what we'll chat about. Brian from Rocky Mountain Discount Sports and I will chat about the latest and greatest going on, and you never really know who else is going to stop by. Be sure to tune in.
Sundays at 11 a.m. or 24/7 on demand on the K2 Radio app.
As veterans, we're no strangers to helping others.
That's what we were taught, service before self.
But we do have one question for the veterans listening.
When was the last time you reached out for help?
If you or someone you know needs resources, whether it's for stress, finances, employment, or mental health, don't wait. Reach out.
Find more information at va.gov/reach. That's va.gov/reach.
Brought to you by the United States Department of Veterans Affairs and the Ad Council.
He's not a politician, but his pants are on fire. Could someone grab an extinguisher? Wake Up Wyoming with Glenn Woods.
The first ever prescription depressant hit the shelves today. Approved by the FDA last month, Despondex is intended as a treatment for the approximately 20 million Americans who are insufferably cheery. Tests prove the drug is effective at reducing a range of symptoms, from squealing loudly when a friend calls to use of the phrase cool beans and excessive hugging. Dr. Alman Way calls the drug a huge step forward in the battle against exuberance.
If you're in a good mood every so often, well, that's fine. That's normal. This is for those that have a persistent positive outlook on life.
Eva Henry of New Haven, Connecticut began participating in a clinical trial of Despondex 6 weeks ago.
I was always telling people how cute their outfits were and bringing them little gifts. I'd beam at anyone who made eye contact with me. I didn't realize life didn't have to be like that.
Eva said she never knew how her annoyingly chipper attitude was affecting those around her.
Over and over again, I'd ask Jeff to ride his bike down to the botanical garden with me. No matter how many times he said no.
And she was always smiling, but I didn't know what to do to help her.
I used to think, why am I the only one trying to set up single friends with each other? And now I realize it. I was sick. I needed treatment.
Eva says the drug may have saved their marriage.
Now Jeff and I can just waste a night sitting on the couch watching a TV show neither of us enjoy. Like a regular couple.
Not everyone is convinced that Despondex is the cure-all for perkiness, however. In this week's Time magazine, Michael Polosic of UCLA argues that many patients get similar results from natural remedies. Something as simple as a diet of corn syrup and white bread and a total lack of exercise. But Dr. Way disagrees.
We have to erase the stigma attached with getting chirpy people help. Real medical help. I mean, do you know what it's like to be around these people? It's pretty annoying.
Doctors estimate the new drug could reduce the number of costume or theme parties in the U.S. by up to 40%.
9:47 the time. Off we go to talk to Frank Gambino, who it's just kind of, do you feel weird actually sitting in the studio with
Yeah,
him?
because I normally don't see faces.
Face to face. No,
you know,
in some of the rooms.
I like my room. I mean, this is a little bit more spacious, you know.
It's nice in here.
You know, I can watch TV.
Yeah, got the huge television.
Yeah.
Now, it's not by today's standards. I always call it the ridiculously large television they put in my studio.
This is small compared.
Most televisions today are much bigger than this, but for this studio, I don't need something this big, this close to me.
I'd rather you watch Cartoon Network,
right?
You know, that's certainly more entertaining.
I can certainly put on something that is more entertaining, but I don't want to be distracted from, I don't know, my job.
Cartoons distract you?
Well, for my job, yeah, especially if it's Bugs Bunny.
Well, yeah.
I'm out. I mean, please. Okay. Wyoming man.
Yes.
Who wore original Taco John's mascot suit says it was a horrible job.
And that's news?
I don't know. Just so you know, for everybody out there.
The name is familiar, but I'm not, you know, I mean, the guy who was in the...
Dave Harrington is his name. He was the Cheyenne-based Taco John's original mascot. And a hot day in Rawlins in 1980. Oh, God, imagine being one of those things in a hot day in Rawlins in 1980. Oh, my God.
Well, it's not just hot. I mean, the suit's hot. Then you have little kids that are pulling on you, and they want to pull your hat off, and then they want to trip you.
Sure.
You know, they make life miserable, you know.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's a meme or not. It's like one of those Disney World employees they caught smoking a cigarette.
Yes.
You know, and he was Snow White.
So, let me see. He says the actual opening crew was shorthanded. Somebody was on vacation. A couple of people were, he talked about where they were. Asked me if I would wear the suit. And then he's stupid enough to say yes.
He only did it one time?
Yes, apparently. Yeah.
Oh.
It was, July.
Yeah, it's hot in Rawlins.
It's Rawlins. It's hot.
Dusty.
And that means dusty and dry. Yeah, okay. So I don't think he ever really recovered from that. Having said that, I've never seen... They don't have a modern-day Taco John's mascot, do they?
I haven't seen one in a while. They've had them, but it doesn't look like that guy that they had before.
So what are they doing now? Is it a big
I haven't seen one lately, but I have seen one, I'd say in the last 5 years, maybe. Okay. You know,
all right.
They'd show up like at high school basketball tournaments and stuff like that.
I've never seen one out in front of a store.
Yeah, it's not a big taco. It's a taller version of that
same
dude.
guy.
Yeah.
The taco guy.
Taller, yeah.
Well, at least if you're at a basketball game, you're inside in the air conditioning.
Right.
That little fan they put in the back of the head isn't going to cut it.
No, and that little vent for your mouth is not going to cut it either.
Not really, especially if you're a nicotine addict and you're trying to smoke a cigarette. Okay,
exactly. Women's college basketball, the Wyoming Cowgirls going 1-0 in the Mountain West Conference tournament in Las Vegas. They lost to Boise State last night by the final score of 62-54. Cowgirls were just brutal in the fourth quarter. They went 3 of 17 from the field. They were outscored 22-10 in the final stanza. For the game, UW 4 of 17 from the three-point line and turned the ball over 15 times, and turnovers has been an issue all year long. Allison Fertig led the Cowgirls with 16, but Tess Barnes was 3 of 12 from the field. Wyoming lost 6 of the last 8 games, so they're 16-14. The NCAA tournament is out for this team, and they may not even get into the WNIT, but there is another tournament after that, sponsored by the NCAA, so we'll see if they grab a spot in that deal. Wyoming Cowboys will play Fresno State in the Mountain West Conference tournament at noon. The Pokes will tomorrow, and the Pokes will play Fresno State in that game, and they played Fresno State over the weekend. And a game that the Wyoming Cowboys won by a ton. So this is a game between the 8th and the 9th seeds. UW is 15-16 overall. Fresno is 11-20. High school football, the Shrine Bowl rosters have been announced for that All-Star game that will be on June the 8th in Casper. For the North team, 4 players from the Toronto were selected. Bo Russell, Joseph Sanchez, Noah Sides, and Tim McEdmondson. And Kelly Walsh with a couple of players on the North roster, Caleb Ortberg and Boyce Caden. And the South team with 5 players from the East on board, Drew Jackson, Cam Hayes, Colby Dirks, Colby Olson, and Nathan Mirich. Cheyenne Central with a trio of players in Mason Counter, Miles Porwall, and Tyler Gare. In the National Football League, former Denver Bronco quarterback Russell Wilson has apparently found the landing spot. ESPN is reporting that he will sign a 1-year deal with the Pittsburgh Steelers. Wilson will get $1.2 million from the Steelers in 2024, but the Broncos are on the hook for the rest of his salary, which is $37.8 million. Figure that one out. Wilson's 2-year tenure with the Broncos after leaving Seattle wasn't exactly a match made in heaven. 11 wins and no playoff appearances. Also, the Broncos reportedly will jettison receiver Jerry Jeudy to Cleveland for 2 draft picks, a 5th rounder and a 6th rounder. Jeudy had just 2 touchdown catches last year, and overall he caught 54 balls for 758 yards in 2023. The Broncos selected Jeudy in the first round of the 2020 draft. And that's it in sports.
Okay, one last question about this guy, and then I'm done with him, unless something really big happens. So, he's going to sign, he signed a 1-year contract?
1-year contract. So essentially what he's betting on is that, okay, I'll sign a 1-year deal here, and if I can get my act together and have a really good season, I can possibly sign another big-time contract.
He's on probation.
He's at $37 million. That's not probation.
Yeah, well, but the team that he's with is only paying 1 point.
Yeah, they're just
I called for that team. I call that probation.
Right. Yeah. He could be like the caretaker pope.
Sure, and it's like a year-by-year contract to see if he actually shapes up or he's out.
Right. If he plays good this 1 year, they may sign him to a multi-year deal after that. Who knows?
I would like a probationary period of $1 million.
I would like 37. Yeah.
37. I could do with that
without probation.
Without probation whatsoever.
Or parole or anything.
Oh, geez, I won't drink so much coffee anymore downstairs.
Oh, no, please don't do that.
That's right. Thank you, Frank. Coming up on some local business. No, I'm drinking all the coffee. Coming up on some local business we have to take care of. We're going to roll into news time after that. And then it's going to be, national news, local news, update on the weather forecast. It's Wake Up Wyoming.